I came with a gorgeous woman calling me husband and telling me to take my medicine, totally clueless about what was happening. I realized I was inside a dilapidated thatched shack. 10 dying men were stretched out on a massive bed, while 9 stunning ladies huddled in the corner, weeping uncontrollably. Suddenly, a rush of memories came flooding back. Turns out I'm Lin Mo, just an ordinary 21st century guy who got ice-guyed into the ancient era, simply for helping an old grandma cross the street. Now, I've ended up inside the youngest child of the Lin clan, the 10th brother. My old man was a renowned general, and my 9 older brothers were absolute legends on the battlefield. But just 2 weeks ago, my brothers were poisoned during combat. Then, malicious rumors branded them as traitors to the realm. The emperor flew into a rage, stripping us of everything, exiling our family from the capital, and banishing us to this miserable excuse for a border town. Dad completely collapsed from the shock and hasn't been able to get up since. So that's how we all ended up here, Dad and my 9 brothers, clinging to life in this pathetic hovel. Suddenly, my oldest brother gripped my hand and, gasping out his final words, warned me, "Once I'm gone, don't you dare lay a finger on your sister-in-law." And then he bit the dust. Next, I went over to my second brother. Same deal. Don't even think about making a move on my wife. With that, he passed away too. By the time I reached the third brother, I tried to cut to the chase, saying, "I swear I won't touch her." Yet he still insisted on dropping his own warning before kicking the bucket. One after the other, all 9 of them left me with the exact same final request: hands off their wives. Honestly, it felt like I was sitting through some twisted, don't hitting on the sisters-in-law ritual. These guys were literally dying of poison, framed for treason, and their absolute top priority was worrying if I was going to hit on their women. Do I seriously seem that sketchy? I'm so scrawny a light breeze could blow me away. Right then, Father started coughing up blood. We all scrambled to his side, but the old man gave the total opposite command. Turns out, not a single one of my brothers had actually sealed the deal with their wives, seeing as they got deployed to the front lines. The very day of their weddings, Dad's final decree: all 9 sisters-in-law are mine now. I've got to protect them and father a ton of kids to keep our family lineage alive. My brother said, "Don't lay a finger on them." Dad said, "Pop out as many babies as humanly possible." Seriously, could you guys have at least gotten your story straight before kicking the bucket? Within 30 short minutes, all 10 of them passed away, leaving just me, the puniest guy on earth, and 9 drop-dead gorgeous women stuck in a rundown shack. 0 cash, 0 influence, no muscle, and an emperor who wants our heads on a spike. I was completely ready to throw in the towel. But right at that moment, a voice echoed in my mind. Some sort of system boot-up sequence triggered, announcing it found the sole survivor of the Lin bloodline, and that the clan is in deep trouble. It guaranteed rewards for, well, doing precisely what my old man demanded. So, according to the system, I gained power by winning the hearts of beautiful ladies. All right, I can work with that. It hooked me up with a starter pack, a physique en signe élixir. The second it touched my palm, I felt a wave of warmth radiating through my hand. This fragile body of mine finally stands a fighting chance. Before I could even process what my next move should be, the eldest sister-in-law, Su Qingwei, dropped the ultimate question: "What's our game plan?" All 9 of them pinned their eyes on me. I was the last man standing, and every single choice rested squarely on my shoulders, taking in the absolute disaster surrounding us. We couldn't even scrape up cash for coffins. So, I told everyone we'd laid Dad and my brother straight into the dirt, no frills. It was brutal to admit, but no one objected. Deep down, we knew there was 0 alternative. There I stood, one frail guy alongside 9 gorgeous widows, lugging 10 corpses on busted old doors. Right out of Black Wind City, we laid them to rest on a slope past the town limits. 10 solitary burial plots beneath the fading sun. Dropping to my knees, I swore an oath. I promised Dad and my brothers I'd get payback, vowing to drag that garbage emperor off his throne and force him to beg for forgiveness on his knees. I kept rambling on about upgrading their graves to mansions in the future. Meanwhile, my sisters-in-law were murmuring behind my back, terrified that I'd totally snapped. Su Qingwei stepped up and lightly touched my arm, insisting we had to push forward and keep living. I assured her I was fine, honestly, better than ever. They all assumed I'd lost my marbles, completely oblivious to the system. Right then, trouble arrived. A bunch of punks came sauntering over, headed by a scarred thug named Wang Erba, the reigning tyrant of Black Wind City. He'd been eyeing my sisters-in-law for ages, yet never had the guts to make a move, while Dad and my brothers were still around. With him out of the picture, he figured he'd hit the jackpot. He started spouting vile, sleazy trash, demanding the women tail along with him, ogling every single one of them, like pieces of meat on display. His cronies cackled, egging his behavior on. Su Qinghua shielded me by pushing me behind her. My second sister-in-law, Qing Ruxue, also stood her ground, squared up to fight. Never mind that her blade was hocked ages ago. She was gearing up to knee him right in the jewels. But before she could even make a move, I had already bolted past her. Look, I don't know the first thing about martial arts, but I completely lost at seeing these punks mess with my folks, right in front of my face. So, I charged straight at Wang Erba, and clocked him between the legs with everything I had. There was this sickening crunch, like crushing eggshells, and his face instantly went totally purple. Before he could even get a curse word out, I socked him directly in the jaw. One solid punch, and his entire frame, easily tipping the scales at over 200 pounds, went airborne. He flew backward, eating dirt roughly 15 meters away. He was out cold. Total dead silence. His little crew just stood there frozen, their jaws on the floor, barely holding onto their weapons. Weren't they dealing with some helpless, wimpy nobody who couldn't even swat a fly? The goons just hovered there in absolute shock. They didn't dare square up with me, but chickening out would look pathetic. Suddenly, one of them had a brain blast. He scrambled over to Wang Erba, shouting that they needed to find a medic ASAP. The rest took the bait, hoisting him up and hauling ass, like the devil was chasing them. They vanished in a flash. I just stood there, staring at my knuckles. Holy crap, did I seriously just pull that off? I had actually popped that body-boosting pill on the sly. The second those thugs rolled up. At first, I only felt this warm sensation washing through me, and figured the thing was a total scam. But then, I leveled that dude and launched him a whole 15 meters back. That medicine didn't just patch up my physique. It completely upgraded my engine. Then it hit me. How on earth was I going to explain this? I was supposed to be the family weakling, the guy who couldn't even watch a chicken get slaughtered. It's not like I could just tell them, oh, I've got this system that levels up my strength whenever I sleep with beautiful women. So, I did what any level-headed guy would do. I faked a fainting spell. I clutched my chest, went totally pale, groaned about overexerting myself, and toppled backward like a dead fish. An absolute Oscar-worthy performance. It worked like a charm. My sisters-in-law panicked and caught me mid-fall. They carried me home as if I were some priceless national treasure. Imagine 9 gorgeous women fussing over me the entire way. Some were massaging my pressure points. Others were checking my breathing. All of them worried sick. I felt a little guilty for enjoying it so much. But hey, I'm the last remaining man of this household. Someone's got to keep team morale up. What I failed to notice, though, was my second sister-in-law, Qin Rushuang, giving me some seriously suspicious looks. She's a trained martial artist, so she could tell that punch packed some serious, genuine power. Definitely not the desperate last strike of a dying man. Safe to say, she wasn't buying my act. Back at the house, it was total chaos. They lit the fires, boiled water, whipped up some porridge, tucked me in a bed, and wiped away my sweat. They didn't stop moving until midnight, when sheer exhaustion finally knocked them out. One by one, we all piled onto a single makeshift bed, just a bunch of wooden planks and straw. Picture 9 women and me all squeezed together. The air was filled with incredible scents, and I couldn't calm my racing heart. I pulled up the system interface. Inside my mind, it displayed my current stats. Body tempering stage 1, 0 skills, 0 techniques, and 0 active quests. The only way to trigger any rewards was to do exactly what Dad asked. Successfully carry on the family lineage. Glancing over, I saw Su Qing resting beside me. Beams of moonlight streamed through a gap in the ceiling, shining right on her while she drifted off to sleep. She was dressed in a sheer, dark nightgown that honestly left pretty much nothing to the imagination. Reaching out, I pulled her tightly into my embrace. She immediately tensed up, whispering, "Brother-in-law, you're awake? Seriously, let go of me." I told her to stop using that title altogether. Call me husband. Hearing that, her face flushed crimson. She attempted to shove me away, but just couldn't manage it. She was terrified of waking the rest of the household, and having them catch us in such a position. Besides, according to Dad's final dying wishes, I technically was her legal spouse now. That realization made her stop resisting entirely. So that night, beneath the ruined ceiling and the glowing moon, we truly became husband and wife in every sense. Afterward, a deep silence filled the room. Su Qingwei remained there, burying her face deep into the pillow, utterly mortified. Meanwhile, I stayed right behind her, feeling pretty damn good about how things turned out. I pulled up the interface in my mind. The system congratulated me on finishing the domestic quest, and granted me a special bonus bundle. It also unlocked a brand new feature, known as the Beauty Gallery. which was basically an index for keeping track of stunning women. Browsing through it, Su Qing's datasheet popped up right away. Attractiveness rating, 92 out of 100. Affection level, 60 out of 100. She possessed a unique trait labeled homemaker, though it was currently locked. To activate it, she needed to genuinely call me her husband from the bottom of her heart. Once triggered, I'd receive a permanent physical boost from marital activities. Next, I unboxed the prize package and acquired an ancient esoteric training method entitled Dragon and Phoenix Dual Harmony. It allows a guy and a girl to cultivate together, boosting both their strengths through intimacy. Even ordinary folks who practice this can actually awaken their spiritual roots and take their first steps toward immortality. So basically, getting cozy with gorgeous women doesn't just make me more powerful. It levels them up at the same time. We can all scale up together. Brothers, I hope you're watching from above. I'm purely doing this for the family name. Just then, Su Qinghua's voice snapped me back to reality. You total liar, she hissed under her breath. Careful not to wake the rest of the group. She had completely seen through me. My fainting spell earlier that afternoon was a total act. That strike I threw clearly packed some real force. There was no way I was completely drained afterward, especially since I was bursting with energy tonight. That alone completely gave me away. She was absolutely livid about being played, tears welling in her eyes as she called me a cheat. Honestly, she looked stunning when she was mad. Cheeks flushed red, lips pouting, and breathing heavily. I couldn't even process a single word coming out of her mouth. She slammed her tiny fist right into my chest, though it felt about as soft as a pillow. Catching her by the wrist, I pulled her right back in my arms and kissed her, cutting off whatever she was about to say. Her eyes went wide with shock. This definitely wasn't part of the script. I was the one who got caught fibbing. I should have been begging for forgiveness. Instead, I was kissing her right in the middle of a rant. By the time I finally let go, she was left gasping, blushing furiously and completely drained of her anger. Right then, the system pinged. Su Qinghua's favorability +1. Oh wait, so locking lips boosts intimacy scores too. I gazed down at her with a whole new perspective. Catching my drift, she instantly turned pale. Wait, what are you doing? But I was already making my move. Not again, she gasped. Su Qinghui just couldn't believe it. She asked if I ever got tired. Honestly, I felt absolutely fantastic. Better than ever. Leaning in, I whispered to her that I'd show her what true exhaustion really meant. This time around, I triggered the Dragon and Phoenix Harmony technique. As we intertwined, a surge of warm energy welled up from deep within and coursed through my entire body. It felt absolutely unreal. I could literally feel my strength surging on the spot, my blood and muscles pumping with a strange new power. Afterward, I felt completely re-energized. Pulling up my system interface, my cultivation level was still at body tempering. Stage 1, but it now noted beginner's insight right beside it. Plus, the Dragon and Phoenix technique was now registered. Under my skill set, the path to true cultivation was officially unlocked. Next, I opened the beauty gallery. Su Qinghua's intimacy score had shot up from 61 to 71. Her status had shifted from a single night's fling to yearning for more. All that hustle was finally paying off. However, her special homemaker talent remained locked. I needed her to genuinely call me her husband. Straight from the heart. The perk? Even higher stamina boosts for our cultivation sessions. She was currently curled up next to me, totally wiped out and barely awake. Giving her a soft nudge, I cooed, "Come on, babe. Call me husband." Her eyes blinked open, and as my request sank in, her entire face blushed bright red like a beet. She immediately buried her face in my chest, while faking being asleep. No way she was spilling it, so she needed more persuasion. Huh! I flipped over and pinned her down again. Her eyes widened. You again. Too late, though. My mind was made up. Tonight's objective: max out intimacy to 100. Unlock that special perk right after. Su Qinghui was snuggled up against me like a content kitten, absolutely glowing with bliss. That cultivation method definitely did something. Mind-blowing to her. Her complexion was much brighter, softer, like she had somehow grown even more gorgeous. Right in front of me. As for me, I was utterly spent, completely drained. Now, I totally get why ancient emperors kicked the bucket so early. I summoned my system status interface with the last of my strength. My cultivation level had leaped straight to body tempering. Stage 1, grand completion. I skyrocketed past beginner's comprehension, through intermediate, hitting the absolute peak in just a single night. My inner energy expanded from a minuscule trickle into a proper current surging through my body, reinforcing my skeletal structure and muscles with every single loop. Totally worth it, barely. My back might be permanently wrecked, though. Su Qingwei's metrics were looking incredible as well. Beauty score climbed to 95, a world-stopping goddess. Intimacy level peaked at 100. Hopelessly infatuated. Yet, her special trait remained unavailable. Simply because she hadn't genuinely called me hubby yet. Just then, the system granted me an extra milestone bonus for hitting max. Affection, a spiritual blade named the Pity Flower Blade. Glacial blue, 3 feet long. Unadorned, yet lethally sharp. Its raw power scales up, in accordance with the combined intimacy of every woman. Inside my beauty archive, more ladies. Deeper affection, deadlier sword. Man, I'm digging this weapon already. I began mapping out our future moves. We required cash, a upgraded place, and a strategy to restore the Lin clan. Blackwind City was a wild, lawless frontier, crawling with syndicates and raiders. I needed to scope things out for some leads. Just then, a gentle hand grazed my cheek. Glancing down, I saw Su Qinghua had totally changed. That timid, hesitant girl from before was completely gone. Her gaze was hazy and brimming with passion. The cultivation practice hadn't drained her at all. Instead, it revived her like a downpour on parched earth. Husband, she murmured. The system immediately chimed in. Homemaker talent triggered. I was granted the gift of limitless stamina. And poof, all of my fatigue instantly vanished. My entire body felt fully restored, as if someone had refueled an empty tank. But before I could even catch a breath, Su Qinchui's hand drifted lower. Husband, she said again. Whoa, hold on. Before I could even process it, she rolled me onto my back and pinned me down. This time, I was the one letting out a startled gasp. She hovered directly over me, her hair draping all around us, ruling the moment like a monarch on a throne. This was definitely not how things were supposed to play out, but she couldn't care less about my shock. She leaned in tightly, her warm breath brushing my face, locking eyes with me in total command. The night was nowhere near over. I slept like a log, and even in my dreams, I kept whimpering, I'm tapped out, not a single drop left. Seriously, if that boundless energy, talent hadn't kicked in earlier, I'd probably be lying 6 feet under with my old man, alongside my brothers at the moment. By the time I finally came to, Su Qingwei was standing right next to the bed, holding a bowl of porridge while gently nudging my shoulder. She almost blurted out hubby, but managed to stop herself, and quickly switched it to little brother-in-law, because everyone else was watching. Still totally out of it, I instinctively reached out to grab her. Why are you still calling me your little brother-in-law? She gave my side a sharp pinch and flashed me a warning glare. Following her gaze, I noticed all 8 sisters-in-law gathered around the table, staring straight at us. Literally every single one of them had massive, dark under-eye circles. They honestly looked like they'd spent the whole night pulling a shift in a coal mine. I took a seat and cluelessly asked why everyone looked so completely exhausted. My second sister-in-law, Qin Rui Shu, set her chopsticks down and remarked dryly, with the absolute racket you and big sister made last night, how was anyone supposed to sleep? I nearly choked on my food. Su Qingwei's face flushed from bright red to totally nuclear. She leaped up from her stool like a rocket and bolted out the door, burying her face in her hands. The remaining sisters-in-law just kept their heads down over their bowls, completely refusing to look up. You could literally cut the awkward tension in the room with a knife. Realizing there was absolutely no saving face here, I scooped up both my bowl and Su Qingwei's, then stood straight up. Go ahead and eat, everyone. I'll take my wife for breakfast. The word wife slipped out so effortlessly. It was practically criminal. Ji Hui Shui instantly spat her porridge right across the table, spraying it all over our 7th sister-in-law's face. I tracked down Su Qingwei outside, curled up on a log, burying her face in her knees. I took a seat beside her and nudged her arm. She glanced up, her eyes welling with tears. This is totally your fault. Now everyone knows. How am I even supposed to face them? I told her it wasn't on me, pointing out she was the one being way too loud. She nearly blew a fuse, but she couldn't really argue back because, well, she knew I was right. I drew her close, softening my tone. I reminded her that we're legally husband and wife, so there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Then, I brought up something that grabbed her attention. In a heartbeat, you're my first wife, which means you hold the top spot. Even if I marry the other sisters down the road, they'll still have to answer to you as the matriarch and follow your rules. You'll be running the whole show. She stared at me, completely stunned. You seriously intend to marry all 9 of us? I shrugged. Hey, it was Dad's dying wish. How could I possibly say no to that? Su Qingwei glared at me while sipping her porridge, but I could tell she wasn't actually furious anymore. I asked her how much food we had remaining. Her expression fell. Roughly 3 days. And that's if we strictly ration it. 3 days max. Plus, that's assuming 9 women survive on tiny portions. We were in a tight spot, but she tried to reassure me, suggesting that she and the girls could look for jobs in the city, doing embroidery, laundry, or whatever it takes. But no way was I letting 9 stunning women wander around a dangerous city, doing backbreaking labor for pennies. I gave her a quick kiss on the cheek and said I'd sort it out. Right then, I accessed the system storage and materialized the pity flower sword right before her eyes. Her eyes went so wide I thought they'd pop right out. Where on earth did you get that? How on earth did you just pull a sword out of thin air? Excellent question. It's not like I could just spill the beans about the system. So I leaned in close and breathed out the absolute craziest line my brain could cook up. I claimed that our passionate, intimate night together triggered a major breakthrough in the cosmic Tao of life. And this blade was manifested from that spiritual awakening. She just stared at me, her cheeks burning bright crimson, completely stunned. So I planted another kiss on her, pressed the weapon into her hands, and told her to pass it along to second sister-in-law, Chin Rushiwe, since she's the only real martial artist among them. I needed someone capable to hold down the fort, while I headed to Black Wind Mountain to hunt for some grub. Then I strolled out the front door, feeling like an absolute boss. The second I walked away, Chin Rushiwe rushed outside, fully intending to run after me. She was convinced Black Wind Mountain was a total death trap, crawling with bloodthirsty beasts and ruthless bandits. Su Qingwei blocked her path, explaining I had strictly ordered her to stay and protect the family. That's when Su Qingwei presented her with the blade. The exact moment Chin Rushiwe unsheathed it, she was totally mesmerized. The steel was ice cold, wicked sharp enough to cut you with a glance, and engraved with strange, swirling patterns. She recognized right away that this was a legendary masterpiece. But then came the exact question I knew was coming. Where on earth did he find this sword? Su Qingwei stumbled over her words, trying to change the subject, until Chin Rushiwe literally grabbed and shook her by the shoulders, demanding the truth. Finally, dying of pure embarrassment, Su Qingwei blurted out my utterly ridiculous cover story, that the sword was forged from our bedroom antics last night, all because I unlocked the mysteries of the great Tao through the sacred harmony of yin and yang. Chin Rushiwe just stood there, frozen solid for 3 whole seconds. She then glared at Su Qingwei, like she'd totally lost her mind. Big sister, you seriously believe that garbage? Su Qingwei covered her face, wishing the ground would just open up and swallow her. Chin Rushiwe just gazed at the invaluable blade gripped in her hand, replaying how I'd totally swept Big Sister off her feet in just one night, not to mention pulling a mythical weapon out of nowhere. Her mind completely short-circuited. What kind of monster had I become overnight? Black Wind Mountain had a creepy vibe, with towering trees blocking out the sunlight, and eerie shadows casting everywhere, as the wind wailed through the branches. But I wasn't that old, helpless Lin and Mo anymore. I strode right in, determined to bag some major game. 9 starving, gorgeous women were counting on me, and a couple of measly rabbits just wouldn't cut it. I needed a wild hog or a deer at the very least. 2 hours later, I was drenched in sweat, and hadn't spotted a single living creature, not even a stray hog bristle. I've been talking big about bringing home the bacon, and now this mountain was making me look like a total clown. My stomach was empty too. Last night's wild marathon, coupled with nothing but a bowl of watery gruel for breakfast, had left my gut roaring like crazy. I was seriously weighing whether to head back to town and pawn the clothes off my back for grocery cash. It'd be humiliating, sure, but beats letting everyone starve. Just as I turned to head back down the trail, 3 dudes ambushed me from a thicket, bellowing, "Freeze! This is a stick-up." It scared the absolute crap out of me. Out of sheer reflex, my arm whipped around, and I backhanded the leader right across the face, before I could even process what I was doing. You think this is some kind of video game? Lurking in the bushes like that. Their chief was a one-eyed crook named One-Eye Biao. He and his 2 sidekicks looked totally pathetic. Shabby clothes, plus chipped and blunt swords. Hardly intimidating. He'd been mugging folks on this mountain for ages. But clearly, no victim had ever slapped him across the face first. Furious, he lunged at me with his blade. Bad call. I hit him with my trademark move. A swift kick, right between the legs. Same recipe, same flavor as what I served up to Wangerba. He collapsed to his knees, his face turning completely purple, unable to even utter a shriek. His pal rushed at me, weapon in hand. I slipped past and punched him square in the jaw. I heard bones crunch. He dropped down and stayed down. Blood splattered all over my clothes. The 3rd guy witnessed the carnage and tried to bolt. I booted him in the back, sending him flying, lights out, standing there drenched in blood. I looked like a monster, but I honestly didn't care. I knelt down and began rifling through their pockets. And that's precisely when I spotted it. A small fabric pouch containing 5 whole silver taels, alongside a fistful of copper coins. 5 taels. In Blackwind City, a massive meat bun only sets you back 2 coppers. And a single tael is worth 1,000 coppers. That's plenty to support an ordinary family for years. Dine out at fancy spots for a month, or well, let's just say it was a massive fortune. Who knew these scruffy outlaws were absolutely loaded? Hunting was a total flop, but getting ambushed proved to be the luckiest break I'd at all day. And I wasn't finished yet. There were 2 other fellows sprawled on the dirt, with pockets left to raid. The second guy had 7 taels. Sweet. Then I strolled over to One-Eye Biao. He was attempting to scramble away, begging for mercy. I planted my foot on his back, holding him down while I tossed his pockets. Since he was the boss, he'd better be packing more than his lackeys. Lo and behold, I found a pristine, pink silk undergarment tucked away. Goose! I shot him a look of pure disgust, and then promptly shoved it into my own pocket. Hey, no point letting it go to waste. That's when he started talking tough, claiming his crew at Blackwind Fortress would hunt me down. A couple more slaps across the face shut him right up. Then, I finally hit the jackpot. A hefty coin pouch holding 18 taels of silver. Adding it all together, that made nearly 30 taels from just 3 scruffy thugs. Turns out, being a mountain bandit is pretty lucrative. I was just about to split when a thought crossed my mind. Blackwind Fortress was just around the corner, loaded with cash. So, I grabbed One-Eye by the collar, hauled him up, and ordered him to lead the way. He guided me to a ridge overlooking their base. I bound him tightly using his own cord, and gagged him with his own sock. Man, the stench was brutal before checking out the scene below. The hideout was basically just a timber stockade. Roughly 25 bandits were throwing a wild party, cheering over a massive score. They'd ambushed some traders, thrown them into a wooden pen, and ransacked their cargo. Crates of stolen goods were piled up everywhere. The bandit captain, a burly, bearded fellow, was completely passed out cold at a table, with saliva dribbling down his chin. 2 terrified young women stood by his side, fanning him while trembling with anxiety. Most of the crew were so utterly wasted, they could barely even balance. Even the lookout up in the watchtower was sawing logs. This was golden opportunity, and I'd only meant to recon. But honestly, this was served up on a silver platter. 25 hammered outlaws against 1 highly driven guy with a family to feed. I made my call to put food on my wife's plate. For a shot at a better life, the gamble was worth it. I leaned over to One-Eyed Yao, tapped his shoulder, and told him straight from the heart that when he's reincarnated, he should really try being a decent guy. His eye widened in absolute sheer horror. 1 quick crack of his neck, and he went limp. Standing up, I brushed the grass off my clothes, stretched out a bit, and sneaked silently toward the stronghold. First, I scaled up to the watchtower, snapped the dozing sentry's neck, and scored myself a perfect view of the entire courtyard. From up there, I could spot everything. Wasted bandits were passed out all over the place, with smashed booze jugs and chewed-up bones littering the dirt. I gathered some sharp pebbles and began picking them off, one after another. The first dude was chugging from a massive wine jug, a rock to the forehead, and he dropped like a brick, planting face first into a greasy table. No one even blinked. 2 more were over by the wall, taking a leak and hyping up girls they couldn't afford. I targeted the scrawny one first. He tumbled forward, and his pal just assumed he'd blacked out from drinking. Then the short, chubby one noticed the blood, opened his mouth to shriek, and my next rock blasted through the back of his skull and flew right out his gaping mouth. He collapsed right beside his buddy. I kept at it, my body tempering. Cultivation gave me insane accuracy and throwing power. Every single stone packed a heavy dose of internal energy. Single shot, single kill. Quiet and smooth, but then I got arrogant. I lined up on this massive, ripped dude. His biceps were bigger than my thighs. Instead of his skull, my rock smashed his jug of wine. The container shattered, and he slammed his head right onto the corner of the table. The pain was brutal enough to sober him up instantly. Glancing around, he spotted corpses scattered everywhere, and began bellowing for his leader. I whipped another rock and nailed him right in the brow. But my timing was off by a split second. His shout had already reverberated across the entire base. The outlaw captain, the huge guy with the beard, snapped awake, bringing his fist crashing down on the wood, splintering the entire table into pieces. Busting solid timber with a single bare hand? That proved this fellow was the real deal. His ferocious roar jolted the rest of the crew. The remaining thugs staggered to their feet, still completely wasted, and witnessed the bloodbath. A good 7 or 8 of their buddies sat dead in place. each sporting a hole through their skull. Blood was spilling everywhere, and sheer terror took over fast. They started yelling that an intruder had infiltrated the stronghold. I'd managed to pick off roughly a third of their men from the darkness, but our stealth advantage was totally shot. Now came the brutal, ugly phase. The hideout erupted into total chaos. Some of the goons rushed to grab their gear, while others scrambled to lock down the entrances. And a few just completely lost their nerve, dropping straight to the ground. It was a glorious mess, but their chief wasn't stupid. He booted one of the hysterical morons to silence the crowd, and the courtyard fell dead silent. In a matter of moments, he was barking out orders and assigning tasks. Go check the lookout post. Get over here, fellas, and line up. Just like that, he whipped a crew of frantic drunks into something resembling a structured offense. Gotta hand it to him for a bandit leader. This dude had some brains. From my perch in the watchtower, I did a quick tally. My surprise attack had dropped a dozen, which left 13, including the chief. Still way too many to just rush and swinging. The boss sent one of his boys scaling the ladder to handle me. I hunkered down by the edge and peeked through the slots in the timber planks as his greasy head crept closer and closer. 2 more rungs, 1 more. The exact moment his noggin cleared the top, I smashed his face with everything I had. The crunch was loud and nasty. He let out a brief yelp and plummeted straight down like a sack of spuds. He hit the dirt with a thud and stayed completely still. The boss watched his guy fall and didn't blink an eye. He shoved away another volunteer who wanted to try going up. Are you an idiot? Did you miss what just happened to him? And he instantly shifted strategies. He dispatched 3 guys to the supply shed for fire oil and commanded the rest to grab bows and arrows. To keep me pinned down, torch the tower, and if he tries to bail, turn him into a pincushion. I caught every single word from up above. 1,000 curses flashed through my mind. This dude was way too sharp for Hill Bandit. Arson combined with range suppression. That's a textbook military play. Who schooled this guy? Some retired general. I knew the score. Once that fire oil got here, I was toast. Either I roast alive up here, or I leap right into a hail of arrows. Honestly, neither choice looked good to me. So I quit overthinking and just made a move. I lunged straight up, standing completely out in the open on the lookout's ledge. The wind tore my bloody clothes. For a brief instant, every single eye in the courtyard locked onto me. He's exposing himself. Fire. Shoot him, damn it, someone bellowed. But nobody even had their bows ready yet. They were still fumbling around with arrows and strings, their hands totally clumsy from a booze. That split second was all the time I needed. I already had a sack full of jagged rocks good to go. Reaching back with my arm, I hucked them straight down into the mob below. Not one by one, mind you, but in massive handfuls, throwing as fast and hard as possible. The idiots had bunched up right next to their leader. For protection, biggest mistake they ever could have made. I didn't even have to try aiming. Every single launch hit a target. Stones sliced through the air and smashed right into flesh. The noises were absolutely disgusting. The wet, heavy thuds of rock tearing into skin, and the sharp snaps of fracturing bones, plus the loud clink of a rock ricocheting off a dropped blade. Ah, my eyes. My leg. My damn leg is snapped. One guy clutched his crotch and folded completely, wailing like crazy about his little brother. The front line collapsed in an instant, skulls cracking wide open and blood spurting everywhere. The guys right behind them stumbled over the dropping bodies. I just kept raining them down, barrage after barrage. Each projectile was supercharged by my body, tempering cultivation, each packed with enough raw power to shatter solid bone. Fall back. Get inside. Everybody get into the building right now. The chief was shrieking at the absolute top of his lungs, shielding his head with that massive cleaver like a makeshift umbrella. One of my rocks clipped his ear, ripping off a whole chunk. Blood splattered down his neck as he shrieked in agony. Yet he kept driving forward, shoving his thugs toward the Grand Hall. I answered their retreat with another volley of stones. Cue more agonizing screams and more bodies hitting the floor. Still, the remaining survivors managed to scramble inside, their chief diving in last, right before someone slammed that thick, heavy wooden door right in my face. I finally ceased fire and took a moment to breathe. My arm was seriously throbbing from all that throwing. Gazing down at the courtyard, I took stock of the carnage. Another 5 dead, plus a few dragging themselves around with smashed limbs, wailing and slowly bleeding out. Between my initial ambush and that last onslaught, I'd basically wiped out about 20 of the original 25 men. Maybe 6 or 7 guys left holed up inside, including the big boss himself. Not bad odds at all. I slid smoothly down the ladder, my boots hitting the dirt floor with a heavy thud. I strolled casually straight through the slaughter, stepping past shattered jugs of wine, dropped weapons, and groaning casualties. The wounded bastards on the ground stared up at me, pure panic written all over their faces. I didn't blink. It's not like these guys were innocents. They pillaged, they raped, and they murdered. I'd seen the cages holding the captured traitors. I'd seen those terrified young girls, forced to fan their boss while he slept. One swift kick for each, fast, precise, and permanent. Once total silence fell over the courtyard, I moved to a safe spot well clear of the entrance, and shouted out, "Hey, you can come on out now." So, is the grand and legendary master of Black Wind Fortress really going to tell me this is all he's got? Just cowering behind a door like a turtle in its shell? What do you think folks would say if they found out? A long, dead silence followed. Then, a muffled voice drifted through the heavy wooden door. "Pal, out there, let's just use some common sense here. Black Wind Fortress has stood right on this peak for over a decade. We've built our whole name on playing fair. We've never done you dirty before. So what's this really about? Can't we just clear the air? Fairness." I nearly burst out laughing. Fair play means abducting traitors, enforcing young girls into servitude, flipping a pebble up and catching it. I kept my eyes glued to the door. "Sure, let's have a chat. Unbolt this thing, and we can have a nice, cozy face-to-face. I'm actually a pretty easygoing guy. Why don't you just step inside, brother? We can pull up a seat and share some wine." "Nah, I reckon it's better if you guys step out." There was zero chance I was strolling into a pitch-black room, where half a dozen desperate thugs packing blades could be lying in wait around every single corner. I wasn't born yesterday, after all. Total, chilling silence from behind the wood. Nobody was budging. A grin crept across my face, baring my teeth. "Not coming out, huh? Fair enough. Guess I'll just have to roll out the red carpet myself." Spinning on my heel, I paced over to the jars of flammable oil, the exact same ones their chief had told his lackeys to grab, in order to reduce my watchtower to ashes. Talk about beautiful irony. I gripped the first container, yanked the top off, and threw the liquid right across the wooden entrance and the surrounding wall. The pungent, chemical reek immediately hit my nostrils. I took the second jar, drenching the parched timber with even more fuel. As it trickled down in dark streaks, I could catch the sound of frantic shuffling and panicked murmurs. From within, someone was whimpering. "You wouldn't dare." The chief's voice echoed through the doorway, but it was completely trembling now. Every bit of that earlier confidence was gone. I whipped out a match and struck it, and a tiny flame flickered to life in my palm, throwing a warm glow over the oil-drenched timber. I raised it high so they could see the light, filtering through the gaps in the door. Want to find out? Boom! Suddenly, the door burst wide open. A bloodshot-eyed thug came charging out screaming, blade raised high, sprinting straight for me. In pure desperation, my hand snapped forward. A rock cleared the gap in a split second and slammed right into the middle of his brow. His legs kept pumping for a couple more paces before his brain finally realized that he was already dead. He took a hard faceplant right at my feet. "All of you rush him. Flank him. Don't let him throw those freaking rocks." The leader was shrieking from behind the doorframe, though I noticed he wasn't stepping outside himself. The final 5 crooks swarmed out from various angles, spreading wide with swords glinting in the sun. They'd clearly learned from watching their buddies die. Bunching up was just asking for it. They closed in on me from the left, the right, and dead center, eager to bridge the distance before I could pick them off. My wrist flicked twice in a flash. 2 stones zipped through the air and struck the temples of the pair on my far left. They collapsed mid-stride, blood spurting from their heads. But the remaining 3 were already right on top of me. 3 blades came hacking at the exact same time, one aiming to split my head open, one slicing right at my waist, and one sweeping low to take out my legs. They had completely cut off any chance of escape. No way to escape. 3 blades striking at me from 3 directions, high, mid, and low. Zero room to maneuver. Most guys would lose it, but me? I had my go-to counter. I adjusted my stance and whipped out a kick, straight between the left guy's legs. His eyes nearly popped, his weapon hit the floor, and he folded up like a lawn chair, before his knees even touched the ground. I whirled around and gave the middle fella the exact same treatment, dropping him cold. He coiled up on the dirt, shaking and groaning. The last dude hesitated for just a split second, but that was all I needed. I slammed my fist into his chest with maximum force, shattering his ribs with a sickening crack. He went flying backward, spitting blood on the fly before landing completely still. Right then, a sharp hiss cut through from behind the doorway. Pure gut instinct saved my skin. I threw my torso back, bending at the hips like some kind of limbo dancer. A dark crossbow arrow flashed past so closely. but I actually felt the breeze on my nose. It slammed right into a wooden post behind me, the end of it still shuddering. "You cheap bastard, hiding a crossbow," I yelled toward the entrance. The outlaw leader tossed his weapon aside and stepped out gripping a massive 9-ring broadsword. That heavy thing must have been 40 pounds. When he heard me calling him a cheat, his features contorted with absolute fury. "I'm a cheat? You sneaked in here like a rodent and butchered 20 of my boys in the dark, and you got the nerve to call me cheap." Valid point, but I wasn't there to argue about it. He let out a yell and swung that massive cleaver right at my skull, making those 9 steel rings along the spine rattle. With an absolute deafening racket, I dodged left and planted a hook right into his ribs. It hit him real solid. Blood started trickling from the edge of his mouth, but instead of dropping, he just snarled and pivoted his downward strike into a brutal, sideways slash. That blade whipped around so fast, I barely pulled back in time. The edge shaved past close enough to clip my nose hairs. This dude was a lot tougher than I bargained for. My punch had only made him cough up a bit of blood. He was massive, stronger, and he actually had some real moves. Every single swing of that massive cleaver packed some terrifying power, and he could pivot mid-swing, like the weapon weighed absolutely nothing. I had to change up my game. As he geared up for another overhead strike, I slipped to the side and hooked my boot beneath a dead bandit's corpse, flipping it at his shins. He instinctively hacked down to clear the obstacle out of his path, and that brief moment of distraction was all the opening I needed. I hurled a jagged rock right at his face, from point-blank range. He tracked it coming, but couldn't move out of the way. The stone tore straight through his eye socket and blew out the back of his skull. He just stood there for a second, paralyzed. One eye was a gory crater, the other wide with agony and shock. His massive cleaver slipped right out of his grip and hit the dirt with a heavy metallic clang. Then he crashed backward like a chopped tree, kicking up a plume of dust. I exhaled a slow, unsteady breath. My chest was still thumping. That damn crossbow bolt had been way too close for comfort. I stepped over to his corpse and stared down at his mangled face and threw in one final boot. Sneaky prick. Next, I made my way to the HQ. The place was a lot fancier than I'd guessed. A massive seat draped in tiger fur, animal skins hanging everywhere, and a few locked trunks tucked in the corners. This had to be where the good swag was hidden. Over in the corner, those 2 young girls from before were clinging to each other, shivering like crazy. Up close, I could finally get a decent look at them. One was maybe 16 or 17, with a delicate, oval face totally pale from fright. Her silk robes had been yanked messy in all the chaos, exposing a bare shoulder and a whole lot else. Gulping hard, I forced my eyes away. I flashed a smile, trying to tell them that the bad guys were completely finished, and they were safe now. Except I was drenched from head to toe in gore, with blood smeared all over my face, grinning with flashing white teeth. Honestly, I probably looked creepier than the raiders. They cringed away from me even further. So much for the grand hero moment. I quit trying to act charming and headed straight for those locked trunks. The first one wouldn't budge, so I gave it a kick. The lock held, but the entire thing flipped right over. Stubborn lock. I focused my inner chi into a punch and completely smashed it open. Just filthy clothes, not a single coin. I forced open the rest, one by one. Moldy, dried rations. Rusty, busted weapons. The absolute best I found was a tiny wooden casket holding a few dozen taels of loose silver. I just stood there, tossing that pathetic bit of cash in my hand, my expression as dark as a storm cloud. This stronghold had been operating for over a decade, and this was seriously all they had to show for it. I'd risk my neck spending hours sneaking around and killing, nearly catching a crossbow bolt through the throat for this. Pissed off, I kicked an empty chest right across the room. Then, a faint, shaky voice called out from the corner. "Sir, could you please let us go?" I spun around. The gutsier girl was staring up at me with wide, terror-stricken eyes. They legit thought I was just another villain. A wicked idea suddenly clicked in my head. "Oh, so you think I'm a bad guy? Fine, let's play the part." I purposefully tossed the silver back into the crate, with a loud clang that made both of them flinch. Then, I slowly started pacing toward them, each step making the floorboards groan under my weight. Every creak made them cower just a bit more. I pulled up right in front of them, casting my shadow over their huddled figures. Looming over them completely, I leaned down close, flashing my most menacing grin, a blood-splattered face with white teeth gleaming. "I went through all this damn trouble to rescue you from those thugs, and I don't even get thank you? You think you could just walk out? There's no such thing as a free ride in this world." The gutsy one was trembling so intensely that her teeth were chattering, barely managing to sputter out, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for saving us." I scoffed. Just words. I reached over and tipped her chin up with a single finger, forcing her to meet my gaze. The girl shuddered. As my icy fingertip brushed her skin, she was completely speechless. Honestly, I was having way too much fun with this. I dropped my pitch to sound as menacing as possible. A couple of pretty girls like you, it'd be a total waste to just let you walk. From this moment on, you're staying put to serve me during the day, and you'll do the cooking and laundry at night. Huh. I gave it my best shot at a villainous laugh. The gutsy one instantly burst into tears, huge droplets streaming down her cheeks. The other girl? She straight up passed out, just crumpled right there onto the floor. My wicked smirk instantly froze on my face. Okay, I totally crossed the line. These poor girls had just broken free from actual monsters, and here I was, giving them fresh trauma. Just for a cheap laugh. A wave of guilt washed over me, right alongside a healthy dose of pure embarrassment. Whoa, hey, I was only joking, just messing with you. I quickly tried putting on a friendly smile. Do I really look like some bad guy? The spunky one peered up at me through her tears, staring long and hard at the blood, splattered over every inch of my face and clothes, and gave a slow, deliberate nod. Yes. I rubbed the back of my neck. Fair point. I told them to head out and loot the dead bandits. Corpses for anything of value. And after that, they were free to go. The brave one locked onto that lifeline, the way a drowning person grabs a rope. She slapped and shook her friend awake, and the pair of them scrambled out of the room, as fast as their legs could carry them. A few minutes later, they returned with a heap of coin, pouches, and a handful of small jewelry pieces. I emptied everything out and did a quick count. Roughly 130 or 140 taels in total, counting what I'd already scavenged from the trunks. I scowled deeply. This was a whole haul, an outlaw stronghold, plaguing the whole area for more than a decade. And this was their entire horde? I nearly took a crossbow bolt to the face for this. See, can we bounce now? The fearless one squeaked out. Yeah, beat it. I shrugged them off, totally let down. They bolted toward the exit like someone had set their pants on fire. But right as they hit the courtyard, hold up. Both of them froze dead in their tracks. They turned around so painfully slow, it was almost funny. Their expressions packed with sheer dread. They were positive I'd flipped the script and was going to trap them here after all. Instead, I just scooped up a fistful of loose silver from the pile, maybe 15 taels, and tossed it right at their feet. You two went through hell. Take this cash for the road and head on home. They stared blankly at the silver on the floor, then back at me, the blood-drenched monster, who had just butchered 24 guys, utterly unable to process what was happening. I clicked my tongue impatiently, and they finally snapped out of it, snatching up the coins and bowing to me repeatedly. Seriously, get going now. They scrambled out, but halfway across the courtyard, the brave girl suddenly paused. She bit her lip, muttered something to her friend, and then, much to my shock, retraced her steps. I threw up an eyebrow. What? Not enough dough? No. She waved her hands in a panic. Then, catching her breath, she blurted out, Sir, I know where the boss stashed his actual loot. Every single nerve in my body electrified. I leaped to my feet and grabbed her by the arm. Instinctively, I yanked her close, which made her gasp. Ow, sir, you're hurting me. Oh, my bad. As I let go. But man, I was staring at her with pure, intense disbelief. She massaged her wrist and then gestured toward that tiger skin chair, right in the middle of the room. Walking over, she knelt down low, searched around the bottom of one leg, and yanked a lever. Suddenly, a harsh, scraping noise echoed around us. A portion of the wall, right behind the seat, slowly rotated inward, revealing a pitch-black corridor. Turns out these crooks had a hidden chamber. Clever devils. Still, I wasn't dumb enough to go first, so I waited for her to take the lead. She caught on quickly and didn't seem to mind. Gathering up her long dress, she stepped into the gloom. I kept right on her heels. The walkway was pretty short, maybe 15 paces, before another hidden panel slid open. And what was waiting inside nearly made my heart thump right out of my chest. The hidden vault wasn't massive, but it was crammed. To my left, trunks were bursting with premium silks and satin linens, all gleaming under the faint lantern glow. Over on the right, shelves were stacked with vintage vases, pieces of jade, and intricate stone carvings. And sitting dead center in the space were a few massive, red lacquered trunks. One was slightly popped open, just wide enough for me to catch the glitter of silver bullion. Stashed inside. Total jackpot. I lunged straight for the boxes and buried both hands into that mountain of freezing, solid silver. Feeling the sheer weight of true fortune running through my fingers was a total rush. I smashed the padlocks off the remaining chests, one after the other. The very first box was absolutely stuffed to the brim with silver bars, perfectly arranged, shimmering under the lantern light. My mouth fell open. The second crate held gold. Not totally packed, but filled halfway, with brilliant yellow bullion that practically blinded me. Pure gold. The third chest held jewelry, golden hair ornaments, bangles of fine jade, and strings of pearls. Precious gems of every imaginable hue. An absolute jackpot. I was on cloud 9. This was the moment. The ultimate payday. Every battle I'd been through. Each gamble I'd taken. It all paid off right here, just behind me. The girl gave a quiet nod and began slipping away. Hold up. She flinched, no doubt bracing for the worst, as usual. Instead, I caught her hand, reached into the silver box, grabbed a massive fistful of heavy silver blocks, and packed them right into her arms. Next, I pulled a golden pin from the jewelry collection and slid it right into her hair. For you. You're good to go. She just stood there, holding a pile of cold silver, a gold accent in her hair, totally stunned. She stared down at the small fortune I'd handed over, then looked right back up at my blood-smeared face. Mister, you're a decent man. She offered the lowest, most respectful bow I'd ever witnessed, then spun around and walked off without a backward glance, clamping the riches tight against her chest. I wiped at the crusty blood on my face, then cast a look back at the piles of gold and silver waiting for me. A decent man? Yeah, right? Being filthy rich beats being a nice guy any day. The sun was dipping low. By the time I finally made it back to Blackwind City, my very first stop was the Welcome and Eatery. I pushed right past the door curtain, and the entire tavern fell completely silent. Every single onlooker froze, tracking my every move. Can't blame him. My white robes were completely ruined with crimson bloodstains. My face was caked in dried gore, and I honestly reeked of an actual slaughterhouse. Some huge guy by the entrance spilled his drink. A mother quickly shielded her kid's eyes, and the owner's customer service smile instantly froze. They pretty much took me for a bandit, looking to stick up the place or a hitman out for blood. I strode right up to the front desk. Give me 5 roast chickens, 3 pounds of stewed beef, 20 meat buns, and a jug of wine, all to go. The entire joint just totally short-circuited, looking the way I did. They expected something like, empty the register, not a massive takeout order. The owner was sweating bullets, and the server's knees practically buckled. When I flipped a silver ingot onto the wood, it rolled, leaving a literal streak of blood in its wake. Nobody wanted to go near it. I had to give them an annoyed glare, before the kid finally picked it up, using just 2 trembling fingers, as if it might bite, and bolted to the kitchen. Leaning against the counter, I was happily plotting how I'd hype up today's crazy adventure to my wives. I didn't even realize that the whole place remained dead silent for 15 solid minutes after I walked out. Meanwhile, back at the house, my ladies were absolutely losing their minds with anxiety. Su Qinghua had been waiting by the front gate since dusk, peering down the pitch-black street, watching for me. Night had completely fallen, and I was still nowhere to be seen. Qing Ruxiu lingered by the doorframe, gripping her pity flower sword and tapping it nervously, attempting to keep it together for everyone. My 5th sister-in-law offered to head out and look for me, but the other 2 shut that idea down instantly. Sending women out into this sketchy city after dark would only make things worse. 9 women, completely helpless and terrified, just sitting there in total silence. Then they caught the sound of my voice echoing down the alleyway. Hey sisters, wives, I'm back. I strolled confidently right around the bend, balancing a pile of massive oil paper bundles in one hand, while holding a greasy, roasted chicken drumstick in the other, munching away with grease dripping straight down my chin. Su Qingyu's face instantly lit up. She hitched up her skirt and bolted straight toward me, throwing herself directly into my arms. For a brief second, everything felt warm and absolutely perfect. And then, she caught the scent of blood. She flinched back, staring down at my clothes beneath the lamplight, and realized I was completely drenched in blood. Her shriek was loud enough to wake up the entire neighborhood. She pushed me away, her face turning pale as a ghost, her eyes wild with sheer panic. Where are you hurt? Does it hurt? Let me check. She started hovering in circles around me, like a headless chicken, raising up my arms, patting down my legs, and desperately trying to rip open my shirt to inspect my chest. She couldn't find a single scratch, yet she simply wouldn't stop looking. Right then, the other 8 came sprinting out. They spotted all the blood and totally lost it, too. Everyone was grabbing at me at once, trying to pull me indoors while shouting over one another. I just stood there chewing with a chicken leg stuffed in my mouth, gazing at 9 stunning women, completely freaking out over me. It took me a brief moment to process why. Oh, right. I was just so hyped about bringing back this blood. Plus all the grub and loot that I totally forgot. I looked like I just stumbled out of a slasher flick. Chill out, chill out. It's not even my blood. I started bouncing around to prove I was totally fine. See? In perfect shape. Not a single scratch. I flashed the food bundles, and the aroma of roasted meat wafted through the air. Hey, dry those tears. The chicken is getting cold. Let's head inside. Just wait till you see what I scored. I slammed the greasy paper wraps onto the table like some champion, returning with a massive haul, 5 golden roasted chickens, a huge chunk of braised beef enveloped in a lotus leaf, and 20 piping hot meat buns. The table was practically buried beneath a mountain of food. 9 pairs of gorgeous eyes locked onto that feast, and wouldn't budge. A few bellies rumbled big time. These ladies hadn't eaten a square meal in God knows how long. I dived right into my epic tale. How 3 heavily armed crooks ambushed me from the bushes. How their one-eyed boss slashed his blade right at my face. And how I wrecked the whole lot of them with my lethal dragon-tail whip move. But nobody was listening. They were all mean-mugging that chicken, like it personally owed them cash. I was getting seriously hyped into my storytelling, thumping my chest for full dramatic effect, when something slipped out from my tunic and hit the deck with a soft thud. It was that pink silk lingerie I'd snagged from One Eyebrow. The entire room went so dead silent you could hear a pin drop. 9 pairs of eyes slowly drifted from the chicken down to the floor, and then right back up to me. Cold sweat dripping, I snatched it up at lightning speed. Don't get the wrong idea. I got this present for Qinghua. Her nightie got ripped by accident last night, so I figured I'd get her a new one. Literally every woman in the room blushed bright red. A couple of the younger sisters-in-law instantly hid their faces in their hands. With her ears burning pink, Su Qinghua looked like she wanted to kill me. She gave my arm a sharp pinch, snitched the thing from my hand without even looking, and shoved it underneath her pillow so quickly. It honestly felt like a magic trick. Just eat. I'm gonna go freshen up. I bolted from the room before anyone could take my life. And that was it. The second I stepped out, the absolute feeding frenzy started. The 5th sister-in-law ripped off a drumstick, took a massive bite, and her eyes practically rolled back in pure bliss. She looked ready to cry because it tasted so amazing. Right after that, table manners completely went out the window. Everyone dove right in, shredding the chicken apart, snatching up buns and stuffing their faces. By the time I walked back in, the table looked like a war zone of bones and crumbs. Still, every single face was beaming with pure satisfaction. The vibe they gave me had totally shifted too. Way less awkwardness and anxiety, and a lot more warmth and trust. This troublesome little brother-in-law had actually managed to bring home the bacon. Su Qinghua had quietly saved a whole chicken and some buns for me, before anyone else could call dibs. Watching her tidy up so elegantly and thoughtfully brought a really warm feeling to my heart. Providing for 9 wives was exhausting business, but honestly it felt pretty damn good. Then again, this cramped house was a real issue. There was barely any space to breathe, let alone get a little peace and quiet. We all crashed on the exact same platform, completely packed in. I seriously needed to get a real place ASAP. The loot from the bandits in my system vault could easily foot the bill, but tonight was all about my cultivation. I spotted a couple of bamboo poles nearby and an old, washed-out sheet. I rigged them up between the wall and a ceiling beam, making the most pathetic excuse for a curtain divider ever. Around our spot, somebody snickered, and then the whispering started. Is he setting up a bridal suite? So he actually does get embarrassed. Seriously, look at Big Sister's face. She's blushing all the way down her neck. Su Qinghua looked like she wanted the ground to just open up and swallow her. I cleared my throat and told them I had some massive news for tomorrow, but wasn't spilling it tonight, since they'd be way too hyped to sleep. Qin Ruoshua pointed at my flimsy makeshift curtain and said, deadpan, as long as you two keep it down tonight, the rest of us will sleep just fine. The entire room just cracked up. Su Qinghua stomped her foot, totally mortified. I blew out the candle to cover my own blushing face, caught her hand in the dark, and guided her behind the partition. In the silence that followed, that thin fabric swayed gently in the moonlight, back and forth for quite a while. At the crack of dawn, barely light out, I was already wide awake, bashing a copper basin with a stick, and shouting for everyone to rise and shine. My sisters-in-law were not thrilled. The 5th sister-in-law just burrowed under her covers like a mole. 4th sister-in-law bolted upright, looking ready to kill, with her hair sticking out all over the place. Qin Ruoshua, meanwhile, just sluggishly opened her eyes, It was pretty obvious she hadn't caught a wink of sleep. Looks like our makeshift curtain didn't muffle much of the noise. Su Ching Wei came storming out next, clutching nothing but a flimsy blanket around herself, standing barefoot on the freezing floor, screaming at me to pipe down. Man, she was quite a sight. Messy bedhead, flushed cheeks, and that blanket barely covering her curves. I couldn't help but tease her. Well, look at my lovely wife, rocking her battle sheet to welcome me home. How romantic. She went bright red, called me a shameless jerk, and scampered back inside like a spooked rabbit. Once everyone finally gathered around our rickety old table, I braced myself to break the big news. All 8 sisters-in-law had heavy bags under their eyes, looking completely wiped out yet again. They were probably wondering what kind of beast I was, keeping Su Chingwei up for half the night, and then bouncing around at daybreak like it was nothing. Plus, they definitely picked up on how Su Qinghua somehow managed to look even more gorgeous and glowing than usual, which made absolutely no sense to them. I clear my throat with total drama. Listen up. Today, I'm making a massive announcement about our family's future. I milked the pause, totally expecting them to gasp in suspense. Instead, those 9 women just sat there, propping their chins up with completely dead eyes. Third sister-in-law actually yawned right in my face. Talk about a tough crowd. I smacked the table. We're buying a literal mansion today. They slowly raised their heads, blinked, and muttered in perfect unison. Oh, just oh. Right then, Su Qinghua tugs at my sleeve, quietly telling me to quit messing around. She mentioned that those dozens of tails I brought back yesterday were already more than impressive enough. With some careful budgeting, it would last for years. As for a place in Blackwing City, way out of her league. So don't even think about it. They all figured I was just blowing smoke. Every single face wearing the exact same look. Sure, babe. Whatever you say. My pride was taking a serious hit. All right, time to blow their mind a little. I'm dead serious, I barked, tossing a hand toward the open air. Suddenly, a massive wooden crate materialized out of nowhere and slammed right onto the table with a heavy crash. The flimsy table couldn't take that kind of weight. One of its legs snapped right off. The trunk hit the floor hard, its lid bursting wide open, sending glittering silver bars scattering everywhere, across the entire room. The whole floor was practically paved in shining white silver. Complete silence. 9 mouths dropped open, forming perfect circles. 9 pairs of eyes popped as wide as saucers. Su Qinghua was the very first to snap out of it, pointing toward the silver with a shaking finger. Linimo, the outlaws you shook down yesterday, had this much? I snorted. Those broke chumps? They only had a few dozen tails total. This haul is from when I completely cleared out their stronghold. Say what? Xingru Shiru shrieked before anyone else could even process it. She gaped at me like I'd suddenly grown a second head. She, more than anyone there, fully grasped just what it meant to ransack an entire bandit fortress. That was a whole different beast than roughing up a few punks. On some back road, leaning in close to Su Qinghua, I flashed my most arrogant smirk. So your man is pretty damn amazing, huh? And with that, I gave her backside a playful little pinch. She punched me right in the chest with her tiny fist, her face flushing bright red, and just to really seal the deal, I gave another wave of my hand, and every single block of silver vanished from the floor, getting sucked right back into my inventory space, as if they were never even there. That little stunt blew their minds way more than the actual cash. Just making things materialize and vanish into thin air like that. It seriously looked like their brains had totally short-circuited. I clapped my hands together, riding the ultimate high of pulling off the absolute greatest flex of the century right in front of some gorgeous women. Honestly, nothing beats this feeling. Don't even bother packing up any of this old trash. We're tossing it all for brand new stuff. Move out with me right now. First destination, the finest joint in town to grab a legendary breakfast. Next up on the list, purchasing the grandest estate in all of Blackwind City. I strutted out the doorway, feeling like an absolute champ. But nobody stirred, so I spun back around. All 9 girls were just standing there inside, completely paralyzed like stone monuments, totally convinced they were losing it. Su Qinghua was clutching her chest, still trying to wrap her head around what just happened. Shinru Shu was just glaring at me, with a look I had genuinely never seen on her before. Let's go, what's the holdup? It still didn't budge, so I grabbed that metal tub once more. Clang, clang, clang. That finally broke the spell. They exchanged incredibly dazed glances, then slowly stood up like zombies and shuffled out after me. But the very second we stepped out into the courtyard, our already smashed-up front gate was booted to smithereens. From the outside, sending sharp wooden shards flying everywhere. We had barely even made it outside when the main entrance shattered inward, and through the flying debris, dozens of enforcers came flooding in, carrying clubs and various weapons, cramming into every corner of our small courtyard. My sisters-in-law, who had barely gotten over the silver ordeal, turned pale once more. The mob split open, and forward strode the most massive guy I'd ever laid eyes on. 8 feet tall, with the build of an ox. He had a brutal knife scar slicing across his face, and gripped a massive executioner chopper. This was Wang Daba, Wang Erba's older brother. Behind him, a few goons were carrying Wang Erba, himself on a bamboo lounger. But something was seriously off with Wang Erba. His face was completely plastered in makeup. He was clutching a pink handkerchief, and he was daintily flaunting his fingers while whining in a high, shrill voice. Big brother. That's him. That's the little punk who ruined me. You've got to get revenge for me, Wah. My groin kick had clearly inflicted some permanent damage on his manhood. He literally wasn't the same guy anymore. Wang Daba's temple was visibly throbbing as he stared at his brother's new persona. He'd been out of town collecting debts, only to return and find his brother transformed into this. His street cred was totally on the line, aiming his blade right at me. Yulin M.O.? I told the sisters-in-law to head inside and bolt the door right away. They complied, except for Chin Rushu, who stood firm by the entrance, clutching the pity flower sword, ice cold and ready to rumble. Get inside, too. Second sister-in-law, I urged. She gave a shake of her head. There are just too many. I flashed her a confident look. Just hold down the door. Don't let any of these pests slip past you. Handle the rest? Leave that to me. She stared intently in my face for a good while. I could read the endless questions swimming in her eyes. How'd I change this much in just a couple of days? Trashing goons, wiping out entire bandit strongholds, even spawning treasure out of thin air. Who the hell was I? Yet, she brushed it aside. Watch your back. If things go south, retreat, and we'll take them on together. Spinning around, she held her ground at the doorway, blade angled down, her gaze as sharp as steel. Outside in the courtyard, Wang Daba was losing his patience. Done whispering sweet nothings to your girl? You're dead meat, kid. Kneel and bow 100 times to my brother. Crawl right through my legs, and maybe I'll make your end quick. I finished wrapping things up with Chin. Turning around, I stuck a finger in my ear, acting like I missed it. What was that again? Speak up. The wind is howling out here. His lackeys started shouting curses at me. Wang Daba raised a hand to cut them off, flashing me a cruel, savage smirk. I love guys with balls. When I snap their bones, the crunch sounds way sweeter. I scanned the dozens of thugs closing in on me. All of you against little old me? Where's the fun in that? How about a 1v1? Wang Daba erupted with laughter, as if I just told the funniest joke ever. A 1v1? What, you 3 years old? I've been in this game for decades. And that's the dumbest crap I've ever heard. His entire crew roared with laughter right along with him, which was exactly what I was aiming for. The precise moment. Every single one of them dropped their guard. I lunged forward with explosive speed. My body bolted across the yard like a shot arrow, closing the gap to Wang Daba in the blink of an eye. No gimmicks, no flashy stunts. Just my reliable go-to-move, putting all my power into my right leg. I launched it straight down the middle. Ultimate technique, the groin obliterator. Clang. Wait, clang? It felt like smashing into a metal plate. A massive recoil surged right back up my leg, leaving it numb from my toes to my hip. What the hell? I instantly leaped backward, creating some distance between us. My foot was completely pins and needles. Wang Daba and his crew snapped out of their shock, and suddenly they all started cheering. Nice try, you sneaky little punk. Haha, he almost had us there. The boss is a total genius. Wang Daba stared down at his groin with the widest, most relieved smirk I had ever witnessed. Then he smacked himself right between the thighs. Clang. The distinct ring of metal. You think I'm some kind of fool, kid? My brother already warned me about your cheap shots. So I dropped some serious cash on this. A solid iron cup. He proudly thrust his hips forward. And I'm not the only one. He gestured across the courtyard. Every single one of his thugs grinned and slapped their own crotches. Clang, 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 clang. The din of dozens of iron cups being proudly pounded reverberated through the area, sounding like the creepiest percussion band on earth. I just stood there, totally flabbergasted. Iron athletic cups, every single damn one of them. In 2 lifetimes, I've never seen anything quite like this. This was the Black Wind Cities. Iron Briefs boy band. Wang Daba kept gloating. Your ultimate trump card is completely useless now. What's your next move, huh? Without a word, I pulled up my status screen. Body tempering stage 1, perfection. And, sitting right beside it, 3 gorgeous, glowing words, ready to break through. That epic marathon session with Su Qinghua last night had totally pushed me right to the absolute limit. I'd been way too wiped out to advance back then, so I just passed out and crashed hard. But right now felt like the ultimate moment. System, initiate breakthrough. A surge of blistering energy exploded deep inside me. It felt exactly like a bursting dam. Raw power flooded through every single vein, every bone, and every strand of muscle tissue. My skeleton began cracking and popping like firecrackers, completely reshaping itself to become way more compact, sturdier, and packed with explosive power. Every ounce of muscle flexed and swelled with a terrifying, brand-new force. It was unreal, far better than anything I'd ever experienced. Honestly, even better than last night. The entire transformation took maybe 2 seconds flats. Wang Debao was just about to mock me for standing there, acting like a total fool, but then it hit him. Something shifted. Visually, I looked identical, but the vibe around me had completely transformed. If I was previously a dagger concealed in its sheath, now I was a naked blade pulsing with deadly bloodlust. A wave of invisible force rolled off me in a heavy tide. Wang Debao's smug grin vanished. For the very first time, pure terror flashed across his eyes. I gave my neck a slow roll, making the joints pop with a sharp, loud crack. Then I flashed a massive grin, bright, yet utterly menacing. Iron Undies, is it? Wang Debao picked up that things were going south. He tightly clutched his weapon, his body tensing up as his eyes locked onto me. And with that breakthrough complete, I made my move. My physical form operated on a whole different level. I closed the gap between us, in a flash. Seriously, one moment I was standing yard away, and the next I was dead in his face. He didn't even catch me moving. His eyes went wide with pure shock. His instincts screamed at him to retreat, but his reflexes couldn't keep pace. I was already launching my leg. This time, I channeled every bit of my newly boosted inner energy right into my foot. Just before the strike, I literally saw the air distort ahead of my toes, like a heat wave. Same exact target as usual, right between the legs. A crack, then a thud. The first noise was his metal groin guard shattering, like cheap pottery. The second was my foot making contact with what lay beneath. Wang Debao's eyes nearly burst right out his head. His mouth gaped open, but he couldn't make a sound. Just white froth laced with bile, oozing from the corners of his lips. His massive blade hit the ground with a clang. His legs gave out, and he went down, curling up in the dirt like a ball, shaking uncontrollably. The courtyard behind me fell completely silent. I caught Shin Rush's faint gasp. Trashing Wang Erbo was one thing. She could handle that. But busting right through a solid iron plate? That completely broke her brain. As for the dozens of goons who'd been cockily clinking their metal mugs just a moment ago, every single one of them froze solid. Did he seriously just, one stammered, shaking, kick right through that? That was Blacksmith Zhang's Diamond Eternal, a deluxe model made of finger-thick forged iron. The boss even shelled out extra for the heavy-duty version. That's no ordinary leg. That's a straight-up battering ram. Every single pair of eyes shifted from Wang Daba's crumpled, ruined body, straight down on my leg, and then totally in sync. Every guy in the courtyard instantly felt an icy draft, right between his own thighs. Wang Erba shattered the quiet, whining in his high-pitched new voice as he scrambled over to his brother. Big bro, are you holding up? It hurts, I get it. Just hang tough. I totally feel you. I understand this agony better than anyone else. I slowly brought my leg back down and lightly tapped my foot on the dirt, sensing this unbelievable power surging through my veins. Breaking through to the second tier was an absolute game-changer. The leap in both velocity and raw force was a total night-and-day difference. My strike had literally smashed through hardened iron. Just to make sure they all got the memo, I casually threw out a couple more kicks into thin air. Whoosh, whoosh. Each snap unleashed a sharp, cracking boom as it shattered the sound barrier. So flashed them my most innocent-looking grin and asked, anybody else want a taste of my leg technique? Every thug in the courtyard leaped backwards all at once, their hands flying to shield their crotches. Pale with pure terror, not a soul budged. Not a single damn one. Backing a boss was supposed to mean scoring easy cash and pushing around defenseless targets, not gambling away your future manhood against a walking, breathing siege weapon. This deal was the worst trade-off in human history. Wang Erba shrieked at them from his seat. Get him! Everyone get him! There's only one of him. Swarm him and slice him up. Not a soul stirred, but a few guys in the back were already sneaking toward the exit. Just then, one of them clutched his gut. Oh man, my stomach. I ate something funky this morning. Need to hit the head, I'll be right back. He sprinted out the door without a second glance. That completely broke the dam. Me too. My stomach is killing me. It had to be that booze last night. My bad, boss. Nature's calling. Sudden stomach flu. It tore through the crew like wildfire. In under a minute, every single thug had bolted from the courtyard, holding their bellies, stumbling over one another to get away. Wang Erba was trembling with absolute fury, bellowing at their backs. You useless punks. Every single one of you. What good is my tyrant gang if you all tuck tail? The second things get heavy. He was still throwing his fit when my shadow loomed over him. He glanced up as I stared down. Slap. So, you love crying for backup, huh? I flexed my wrist. Slap. A backhand this time. Go on, call for some more. Slap. An even harder one. What's wrong? Cut out your tongue. Wah. Please, stop beating me. Wang Erba's face had ballooned like a bruised pumpkin, with blood dripping into his drool. He shielded his head with both hands, whimpering, Sir, Grandpa, I screw up. Please, no more, or my face is going to be straight mush. I cocked my hand back once again. He let out a sigh of relief when I paused. Slap number 4. Dead on target. You don't call the shots on when I'm done. Right after, I began tossing his pockets. He squirmed and whined. What are you pulling in broad daylight? I don't swing that way. I nearly threw up. Could you please stop being so gross? Fighting back the urge to gag, I yanked a chunky coin purse out of his robes and stashed it right into my system space. Wang Erba stared blankly at his empty hand, totally dazed, probably figuring his puffy eyes were playing tricks on him. Got anything else? He gripped his chest defensively, like some damsel protecting her virtue. I dry heaved and moved on to the real jackpot. Wang Daba. He was still sprawled on the dirt, drenched in cold sweat with iron. Shrapnel from the shattered cup wedged deep in his skin, bleeding like crazy. The guy actually looked up at me with a glimmer of hope. B brother, please get me to a dock. I think I can still make it. Ignoring his pleas, I snatched a massive money bag and a brass keychain straight from his clothes. I weighed the bag in my hand, nice and hefty, then made it vanish. Dangling the keys, I asked, what do these open? The tyrant gang's vault? His eyes lit up. Brother, check this out. Give me to a medic, and everything inside is yours. Half of it. No, 70%. I stared at him like he was the biggest moron on earth. Why on earth would I save you? If you croak, I get a full 100%. You? He choked on his own fury, his eyes rolling back. Kid, leave a man some pride, and one day, I planted a kick right in his gut. Before he could even wrap up his warning, the rest of his words dissolved into an agonizing moan. Mission accomplished, I got to my feet, brushed off my hands, and spotted a few nosy neighbors, spying through the smash gate. I shouted for them to get over here and help. They tried to bolt. Don't you dare even think about it. I know exactly which doorsteps belong to you guys. My memory is flawless, and I absolutely hold grudges. Unless you want me paying you a visit. They trudged right back, wearing the most pathetic faces I've ever witnessed. I flipped them some silver coins for their trouble, and pointed straight at Wang Erboy in his seat. Heft him up, you're tagging along with me. Then I faced the house and called out, Sisters, let's move. Time to crack open some loot boxes. Word spreads like wildfire in the slums. In just minutes, the entire neighborhood caught wind that I'd shattered Wang Daba's reinforced iron pelvic armor. By the time we hit the tyrant gang's headquarters, the entire place had gone completely off the rails. The thugs were busy plundering their own compound. Guys were scrapping over porcelain vases, hauling off furniture, and basically stripping the walls bare. The ship was going down, and every single rat was grabbing whatever it could. Right then we strolled in, myself, 9 stunning women, and Wang Erboy, propped up on his rickety bamboo sedan chair. Wang Erboy completely lost his cool, watching his own crew ransack the joint. He screamed at them in that brand new high-pitched voice, banning on about loyalty and respect, but nobody gave a damn. Their big boss was permanently mangled, and the second in command had been reduced to whatever the hell Wang Erboy was now. Why hang around and wait for me to come collect the debt? Some goon lugging a bronze incense burner tried to sneak right past me. I blindly slapped him down without a glance. He spun twice like a top and knocked out the rest. Just 2 words muttered softly, and the whole courtyard froze. Then, out of nowhere, everyone suddenly remembered. Pressing meetings or sudden bellyaches, or their moms calling them back for supper. They ditched their gear and bolted. And boom, the whole tyrant gang's headquarters was ours. The estate was actually pretty massive, stretching 4 or 5 courtyards deep. Granted, it had the tackiest decor I'd ever laid eyes on. Absolute nouveau riche. I faced my sisters-in-law and told them to grab whatever caught their eye. Su Qinghua anxiously yanked on my sleeve. Isn't this wrong, looting stuff that isn't ours? I put on my ultimate saintly expression. This stuff doesn't belong to them anyway. Every single piece was stolen from poor folks. Around town, we're just returning the loot to the public. This is true justice, pure charity. They just stared at me, halfway buying my total BS. Qin Rushuang finally broke the ice. He's right. These bastards don't deserve a thing. She marched right up to a weapon stand, picked out a solid-looking blade, hefted it for balance, and nodded with approval. Right after that, all bets were off. Fifth sister-in-law dashed into a room and emerged, clutching a roll of stunning cloud silk, giggling with excitement. Pretty soon, the 9 of them were happily shopping across the base, debating over the best fabrics, watching my ladies go from demure and proper to eagerly plundering a gangster hideout. Beautiful. A great day begins with helping your women unleash their inner outlaws. Next, I faced Wang Erba. So, where's that vault your brother talked about? He directed me toward a little structure out back. I tried the keys I'd swiped from Wang Daba, spotting the right one, a massive, weirdly shaped brass key, and unlocked the door. Even after checking out the Black Wind Fortress Vault, this place totally blew me away. 20 square meters, crammed floor to ceiling with loot. Tidy piles of silver ingots lined one side, while a dozen massive trunks overflowed with copper coins and loose change. Gold bricks and gold bullion sat in small crates on a desk, as well as scattered all over the floor. Jade charms, agate bangles, pearl strings, and chunks of emerald. The quality was hit or miss, but the sheer volume was absolutely insane. The tyrant gang had bled this whole town dry. I shut the door behind me, rubbed my hands together, and got right to it. System, let's do this. I gestured at the massive pile of silver. Harvest. It vanished in a flash, sucked straight into my inventory. I waved my hand over the trunks of copper coins. Poof, gone. Gold bricks? Stored. The jewelry? Logged. Jade, pearls, agate. Secured. One item after another. The whole haul vanished right into my system stash. I could literally feel it piling up inside. A literal mountain of gold and silver, filling up that 100 cubic meter vault space. The adrenaline rush was unreal. I was just dusting off my hands, about to head out, when an empty crate tumbled off a ledge. It hit the floor, and a slender slip of paper slipped out from a false bottom underneath. I snatched it up, a real estate deed. I strolled out of the treasury completely empty-handed. Well, at least as far as anyone else could tell. The neighbors and Wang Erba just stared at me, totally clueless. I had walked into a room packed with treasure, and walked out empty-handed. But they had no idea. Every single coin was already stashed in my system inventory. I tossed a few taels of silver to the neighbors as a tip, and they practically wept with joy. My sisters-in-law strolled over, beaming from ear to ear. Su Qingwei was sporting a stunning pearl necklace. She'd scored, and she proudly puffed out her chest to flaunt it. Looks good, right? Sure does. But you look even better. She blushed and played off being annoyed. Qing Rushuwei had gathered a whole armful of vintage swords and blades right alongside the pity flower sword. My fifth sister-in-law was clutching rolls of cloud silk, like a kid waking up on Christmas morning. Everyone was buzzing excitedly over their loot. Then, I shifted my focus to Wang Erba. I pulled out the land deed I'd uncovered and flashed it right before his eyes, putting on the warmest, most welcoming smile I could muster. So, pal, this deed belongs to this very estate, yeah? And it's under your name. He nearly jumped out of his skin. My pleasant expression terrified him way more than my angry one. Turns out his old man, Elder Wang, had favorites and signed the property over to him before kicking the bucket, making Wang Erba the rightful owner. So down a cell, I inquired, clapping his shoulder so hard that his bones creaked. His mind went into overdrive. He saw exactly what I was pulling. Not really. I quirked an eyebrow and gripped him tighter. Actually, if the price is right, I guess we can make a deal. How much do you want? He raised 5 shaking fingers. 5,000 taels. I just went, 4,600? On the verge of tears, he begged. Just name your price, sir. I held up a single digit. His eyes went wide. 1,000. That's highway robbery. My dad spent over 5,000 just to build this place. Market value is easily 6 or 7,000. I shook my head. Not 1,000. A glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes for a split second. Phew, maybe I was throwing him a bone. 100, he squeaked out, already completely crushed inside. Fine. 100 taels. At least that buys a shack somewhere out in the sticks. Nope, not 100 either. He completely lost it, lunging to grab my pant leg, with tears and snot streaming down his face. Just give me the number. End this torture. I flashed that same single finger again. One tail. His voice cracked so badly. He sounded exactly like a cat getting stepped on. Staring at my finger, his lips quivered uncontrollably. Then his eyes rolled back, and he passed out cold, sliding right off the bamboo chair. Whoa, don't go dying on me now. I leaped back in a panic. Someone pinch him. Wake him up quick. He absolutely could not kick the bucket before signing over the property deed. That would totally ruin everything. The neighbors came rushing over, one pressing his acupoints, another slapping his face. After a few hard thwacks, Wang Erba's eyes blinked open, and right away, he began bawling like it was the end of the world. Just kill me, stick a knife in me, and end it. What did I ever do to deserve this? He was weeping so incredibly dramatically that any passerby would have assumed he was just some blameless casualty, getting harassed by a total freak, which honestly wasn't completely off base. Quit crying, or I'll rip your tongue out. Wang Erba's sobbing cut off immediately, as if someone had slammed the mute button. Nothing but hiccups remained. I squatted down and told him I'd actually up my bid. Seeing how pathetic he looked, his eyes instantly flashed with hope. Then I tacked on that if he passed it up again, I'd give him a matching boot to rival his brothers. Flashing 5 fingers, I said 500 tails. F 500 tails? 5 tails. His lips began to quiver, and he was right on the verge of tears. Don't you dare. I snapped. He somehow choked back the waterworks, his face turning purple from holding it in, leaning right into his face this time. He could totally feel the pure lethality radiating off me. Survival instinct won out. I'll sell. He groaned, like those words sucked the life right out of him. I instantly flipped back to my most amiable expression. See? That wasn't so tough. I smacked his shoulder so hard he nearly crumpled. Then I generously suggested he bunk at our old, battered shanty until he could find his footing. He wanted to argue that the dump wasn't even fit for dogs. But self-preservation kicked right back in. Thank you, sir. You're far too kind. Behind me, I could overhear the sisters-in-law muttering. Is he shaking that guy down? He's way worse than Wang Erba ever was. That grin is giving me the creeps. I didn't give a damn. I dispatched a neighbor to round up a real estate agent, a broker known as Full Tooth Quan, who managed property deals around this neighborhood. The dude arrived, took one glance at the setup. Some guy sobbing in a chair, me hovering with a smirk, and 9 gorgeous women whispering anxiously in the background. He instantly picked up on the vibe. Don't ask questions, avoid eye contact. Just approve the paperwork and get out alive. He set up the contract and ink on a table. Someone dragged Wang Erba over. Come sign. I said sweetly. Wang Erba stared at the page. The words, 5 tails of silver, were written right there in bold, prominent lettering. His hand shook so badly he dropped the brush. 3 times. I lost my patience. Grabbed his hand, snatched up the brush myself, dipped it in the ink, and forged his signature right then and there. Then I slammed his thumb onto the ink pad and pressed it onto the document. The broker watched, his eyelids twitching, silently praying to every deity he could think of. I added my own signature, left my own print, and passed the forms over for the final stamp. The agent certified it in record time, ripped the deed apart, shoved my copy at me, and basically vanished right out of the courtyard. Once Wang Erba saw that deed slip away for good, he completely broke down. He collapsed in his seat like a popped balloon, staring into space and muttering, "Gone. It's all gone. My estate gone. Everything his father had spent a lifetime swindling and stealing to accumulate, unloaded for the cost of a decent meal." I didn't feel a shred of pity. To handle bad guys, you've got to be worse. I called out to the neighbors. Escort our pal Wang Erba to his new place. They were absolutely thrilled. Literally everyone around here detested that dude. They hoisted him away like a dead fish and hauled him off. Once he was out of sight, the sisters-in-law finally realized what it meant. We actually have our own place. The 5th sister-in-law gasped, clamping a hand over her mouth. With wide eyes, Su Chingwei was the first to snap back to reality. She lunged forward, ripped the property deed right out of my hands, and stared at it intently. The moment she spotted Lin Mo named as the buyer, she practically shrieked. It's for real. It's legitimate. We finally have a home. She threw her whole weight into me, flinging her arms tightly around my neck, clinging onto me and bouncing up and down. The sensation of certain soft parts of her body pressing right against my chest made it seriously hard for me to focus. The remaining 8 girls swarmed in as well, reaching for the deed and embracing one another, weeping and laughing all at once. The entire courtyard dissolved into a chaotic mix of joyful tears and hyped-up chatter. "Hey, can't breathe," I choked out. Rolling my eyes back, I reached down to steady Su Chingwei. but I might have accidentally grabbed an inappropriate spot. She squealed, flushed a deep crimson, and leaped off me like she'd just taken an electric shock. Catching my breath, I watched the 9 of them celebrating, then cleared my throat. Ladies, whoever said we're staying here? The sisters-in-law completely froze up when I mentioned that we weren't moving in. Su Qinghua glanced up at me, totally bewildered. Then what was the point of going through all that hassle? I flaunted the deed right before their eyes. This, my friends, is called an investment. I picked this property up for just 5 taels. We tidy it up a bit, then flip it for 6 or 7 grand. Easy cash. It took a moment for that to register. And when it did, they all just gaped at me, completely stunned, like they were looking at a total stranger. Anyway, I broke the silence. We've been hustling all day on empty stomachs. Let's grab a bite. I brought them to Gathering Fortune Tower, the absolute swankiest, most high-end joint in the whole of Black Wind City. It was 3 stories of sleek, polished redwood, complete with hand-carved beams and gilded signage. The exact kind of place reserved for the ultra-wealthy. The host's polite, professional smirk nearly slipped. The second we strolled inside, a single guy in basic clothes, playing guide to 9 gorgeous women. He seriously had no idea what to make of our crew. I could see him checking us out, sizing us up. Sure, our gear looked pretty worn and faded, but the ladies right behind me were absolute showstoppers. There was Su Qinghua, elegant with her pearls and poised stride, and Shin Rushai, tall, athletic, and carrying swords with a frosty, ice-cold vibe. Our little 5th sister-in-law was gripping her silk bolts, her eyes darting around wide with wonder like a startled bunny. Honestly, any one of them alone could stop traffic, so all 9 together felt like a total bombshell. The server was still totally spaced out when I approached him. Are you going to seat us, or just stand there staring? He snapped right out of it and launched into his usual welcome. But before he could even finish, I dropped a hefty 5-tael silver ingot right into his palm. His eyes looked ready to pop out of his skull. 5 taels. That was enough cash for an ordinary family to live on for a whole year. That customer service grin of his instantly flipped into the most genuine, over-the-moon beam I'd ever seen in my life. He practically folded himself in half, bowing. Honored guests, right this way to our private VIP suite. He escorted us upstairs, wiped down the table 3 separate times, and swapped out every single plate and cup for fresh, pristine ones, and doted on us as if we were royalty. The sisters-in-law lingered awkwardly by their seats, not quite knowing what to do with their hands. They just weren't used to fancy places anymore. Years of constant struggle had chipped away their confidence, right along with their elegant clothes. And that's precisely why I was doing this. They needed to remember who they truly were. Not beggars or refugees, but noble women, who once ran in the highest social circles of the capital. Sometimes, you gotta go big to snap people out of a rut. Take a seat, everyone. What are you all standing around for? Su Qing just smiled gently and ushered the others to their places. They sat with immaculate posture, stiff and formal, still clearly out of their comfort zone, when the waiter returned with a menu and began rattling off the daily specials. I cut him right off. Don't bother reading all that. I whipped out 5 more silver ingots and lined them up across the table. 50 taels in total, pristine and gleaming. Just bring me one of everything you've got. The waiter froze mid-breath, his knees visibly shaking. He snatched up the silver and bolted for the kitchen, like his life depended on it. Other guests in the restaurant were craning their necks, trying to peek into our private room. The whispering broke out instantly. Who was that kid throwing cash around like that? Dressed so basic, yet spending like royalty. Must be some kind of big shot in disguise. And did you see those 9 women with him? Every single one of them is stunning. Man, life is so unfair. I tuned it all out. My only focus was the women at my table. Ladies, tonight, we feast like kings. Dig in however you like, no restrictions. Totally holding nothing back, course after course arrived. Crispy, golden roasted suckling pig. A rich, simmering pot of Buddha jumps over the wall. Soup, perfectly steamed fish, and tons of other stuff I couldn't even name. The entire table literally vanished beneath mountains of food. At the start, they dined like proper, high-class ladies, taking tiny bites and keeping it real polite. But gradually, they just let loose. Shin Rushu was the very first to break character. She ripped off a whole chunk of braised pork knuckle and just went to town on it with both hands, her ruby lips glistening with oil. Honestly, she somehow made it look badass instead of messy. Meanwhile, 5th sister-in-law spotted a platter of sweet osmanthus cakes, hoarded it right against her chest, and crammed her face until she looked just like a cute little hamster. Sushinguyu maintinet her elegant vibe. though her chopsticks were definitely flying, way faster than they usually do, and watching her chest heave up and down with each excited breath she took made it seriously tough for me to focus on my own meal. Still, this was precisely what I wanted. Feed them right, pamper them completely, and slowly but surely, that old grace and self-assurance would return. They say you should raise daughters in luxury, and that totally applied here too. Right outside our private dining room, the other patrons were pretty much snapping their chopsticks out of pure jealousy, seeing 9 gorgeous women feasting, sharing laughs, and beaming with sheer joy. With me sitting right at the center of it all, we kept eating straight till midday, completely clearing dish after dish. By the time we finished, every single one of my sisters-in-law had this totally satisfied, joyful expression. It's that specific look you get from a proper, hearty meal after what feels like absolute ages. Letting out a burp, I cleaned off my mouth and casually asked our server if he knew where to buy some property. The poor guy looked completely thrown off. Like, first I eat through his entire kitchen, and now I'm asking about real estate? He ended up directing me to the largest property firm in the whole city, an establishment called the Universal Trade Agency, located over on the east side, and even offered to show us the way. I flipped him another silver ingot as a tip for the walk. While we walked, my anxious little 5th sister-in-law gave my sleeve a nervous tug. Are we seriously purchasing a massive estate? How much cash is that going to take? Gently pinching her cute, chubby cheek, I just chuckled. Hey, money is meant to be blown. Besides, with a crew as big as ours, we seriously need the space. Shin Rushiwe quirked an eyebrow. Wait, are you actually giving every one of us a private room? I smirked. Yep, a room for everyone, plus an absolute massive master suite for all of us. To, play cards together late at night. Shin Rushiwe completely missed the joke, but Su Ching Wa caught the dirty innuendo on the spot. Her face instantly flushed bright red, and she glared at me with pure daggers in her eyes. I just pulled her in tight and planted a kiss on her, right there out in the open street. The agency itself looked pretty high-end. Massive, red-lacquered entrance doors and a sign rocking gold lettering. The proprietor was this smooth-talking, middle-aged fellow by the name of Chin Wan Kai, sporting a goatee and dressed in a fine silk robe. He took one quick glance at my basic, ordinary clothes, and immediately shrugged me off as just some lucky peasant who had somehow chanced upon a little bit of wealth and getting completely drained by 9 ladies. He flashed a pretty patronizing smirk. Hunting for a tiny place, are we? A compact little patio, or maybe a snug spot for your crazy crew? I wasn't about to waste breath on a jerk, so I just whipped this out, clang. A bunch of shiny gold bricks dropped right onto his desk, popping up out of nowhere. That golden glow hit his eyes, and his brain totally short-circuited. He grabbed one with shaky hands and took a bite. Legit. Completely authentic. His eyes practically bugged out with dollar signs. He started swooping in on those bricks, looking like he wanted to make out with them. I just flicked my wrist and poofed them all away. He still had his duck lips going. By the time he clocked that the stash had vanished, the expression on his mug? Totally priceless. The dude nearly had a coronary from the surprise. Then he locked eyes with me again, and the whole vibe flipped. I was no longer just some broke punk. I was a wizard dropping and popping gold on command. Sir, the absolute legend. He hustled around that counter so darn quick, he nearly wiped out. Right this way, please. Step into the exclusive lounge. You name it, we've got it. He started barking orders at his workers, demanding they fetch his top-shelf, private reserve tea, made with fresh mountain spring water. He actually hand-delivered the cups to our suite, which smelled of super high-end sandalwood incense. What sort of real estate catches your eye, boss? I didn't give him an answer off the bat. I totally drag it out, just sipping my brew, lazily blowing the foam off the top, and just letting that awkward silence hang there. With every tick of the clock, the guy's sweat bullets. Serves him right for treating us like peasants. Finally, I placed my cup back on the table. Let's see the grandest and top-tier estates you've got. He practically snapped his back, bowing so low. Then he unlocked a small casket made of wood and fished out several hand-drawn overhead sketches of high-end manners. Gorgeously illustrated, he gestured toward the initial option, virtually salivating while pitching its features. This here is the Moon Embrace Manor, spanning over 30 acres with 5 interconnected courtyards. The front grounds are vast enough for horseback riding, while the back features a natural stream garden complete with gazebos, artful rock formations, and scenic pools. Its previous occupant was a regional governor, back in the old dynasty. The property's feng shui is unmatched throughout Blackwind City. He snuck a look at me to gauge my interest. I maintained a total poker face, so he dropped his ultimate selling point. Plus, it boasts its very own thermal spring, ideal for you and your ladies to unwind together and nurture those close family ties. A private hot spring? Large enough for the entire household? I nearly slammed my hand on the desk. That's the winner. I'll take it. I had thrashed the tabletop and nearly leaped clear out of my seat at the mention of a hot spring. However, a brutal pinch to my forearm, paired with 9 freezing daggers stared from behind, instantly snapped me out of it. Quietly, I raised my teacup. Show me the alternative options. The second spot was a former intellectuals compound, dubbed the Listening Rain Pavilion. Thick bamboo thickets and a lake of lotuses, tailor-made for composing verses and cultivating sophisticated hobbies. I can't even write a basic rhyme. Hard pass. The third belonged to an old money tycoon from the city. Solid gold detailing, rare Nama timber covering the walls, and white jade underfoot. Totally gaudy and tacky. Su Chingwell muttered under her breath that it looked way too ostentatious. That sealed the deal. The broker, Dian Wankui, was sweating bullets over his top 3 properties. Since I completely passed on all of them, I finished my tea without saying a word, put the cup down with a sharp clink, and got up to leave. Dude totally panicked. He straight up dove right in front of the door, arms wide open, blocking our way out. Sir, I have just one more. My ultimate, top secret treasure. He hurried over to a landscape painting on the wall, felt around underneath the frame, and popped open a hidden compartment. From inside, he pulled out a black wooden chest, bound in weathered copper fixtures, handling it like some holy relic. What was inside wasn't a blueprint. It was an entire painted scroll. He unrolled it slowly, revealing a massive compound. This is the Northern Garrison Mansion, the old estate of the Grand General of the North. 80 acres, dozens of courtyards, and over 100 rooms. You could marry 50 more wives and still have room to spare. Plus, the rear grounds feature a full military training field, complete with weapon racks, a racetrack, and archery targets. My eyes opened wide. 100 rooms? That was the ultimate setup for a cultivation base. But the real shocker was Chin Rush. The second she heard training field, she totally froze. She instinctively grabbed hold of my arm, her eyes beaming like a kid on Christmas. System alert, Shin rushes. Affinity has increased by 1. Wait, just from holding my arm? Lean Ma, a training field. She blurted out, totally thrilled. That spot's perfect for training. She stopped dead in her tracks, catching that she was just projecting, then blushed, quickly pivoting to make it about me. Meanwhile, I noticed her hand was lingering on my arm. Covering it with mine, I gave it a gentle squeeze. Delicate yet solid, the hands of a fighter. Chin Ruashwai affection. +2. 2 points just for holding hands? Why kiss Su Jiwei? It barely bumped up by 1. What was Chin Ruashwai's deal? I kept stroking her hand, testing out this discovery. Affection +1. Suddenly, she realized what was going down, snatching her hand back like she'd been burned, and whipped her head around so fast that her ponytail swung wildly. Her ears were totally flushed. The other sisters-in-law suddenly became deeply invested in their teacups, and the ceiling, though none of them could mask their smirks. The cold, untouchable second sister-in-law, flustered like a schoolgirl. Now, that was a first. Meanwhile, Wang Kai couldn't care less about our romance. He watched my expression shift from hyped to puzzled, then totally blank, terrified the deal was slipping away. I decided to let him sweat for a bit, asking for a refill and taking 2 slow, deliberate sips. The guy looked like he was roasting alive. Finally, he broke. Sir, the Northern Garrison Estate. Is it to your liking? Placing my cup down, I said, it's grand. His face beamed, but I'm wondering. I pressed on. A property this spectacular. Why has it been sitting vacant? Why can't anyone lock in a buyer? His smile vanished. My question struck the agent's ultimate sore spot. His expression went rigid, and his slick salesman persona completely vanished. He tried BSDNG me with some garbage about awful feng shui. The previous owner, a high-ranking general, was executed for high treason. His entire bloodline was liquidated, leaving the estate plagued by malevolent vibes. Supposedly, only someone with my extraordinary fate could handle the place. I didn't even bother looking up from my teacup. Do you seriously take me for a toddler? I straight up broke it down for him. By imperial decree, a trader's assets are confiscated and liquidated by the state, with all the cash going directly to the royal treasury. So how on earth did he get his hands on the deed? And honestly, who in their right mind would touch a freshly seized rebel estate with a 10-foot pole? Any businessman buying it would immediately be branded a rebel sympathizer. Any government official would face impeachment. Even the wealthiest aristocrats wouldn't dare piss off the emperor. This property was completely radioactive for at least a decade. With every word I spoke, the color kept draining right out of his face. I had him totally figured out. The reality was, he paid off some corrupt official a year back to score the deed on the absolute cheap, gambling on making a killing by flipping it. Instead, absolutely nobody would give a second look. He'd been eating the upkeep fees out of his own pocket for the past 12 months, hemorrhaging money day after day. The villa was basically a financial millstone around his neck. Once I had him completely rattled, I went in for the kill. I began retrieving gold bullion from my system inventory and piling them onto the tabletop, one after the other, totaling 20 bricks, 50 taels apiece, neatly stacked into a glittering pyramid, which illuminated the entire space. Even my sisters-in-law completely lost their breath. They'd never seen such a shameless display of pure wealth. The broker's mind went totally blank. With trembling hands, he grabbed my arm, stammering, "Sir, the original price was 80, no 70, 66,000 taels. Just let me cut even." I simply raised a single finger. 10,000. He practically passed out on the spot. That wouldn't even cover what he paid in bribes, hush money, or basic upkeep. But I wasn't anywhere near done bargaining. Slowly, I began packing the gold bars back into the bag, piece by piece. "If you sell, we ink the deal right now. If you don't, I'll just check out the competitors over on South Street and West Street." I stood up and made a move toward the exit. He threw himself right in front of me, blocking the way. On the verge of tears, he begged, "Please, just throw in a bit more." I put on my best man, "This is really breaking my heart" face, feigning some serious, painful deliberation. Then, I whipped out the ownership deed for Wong Erba's estate. "Look, I got this property down on the south side. It set me back 10,000 taels, but the layout just isn't my style. I'll value it at 5,000 plus 10,000 in cold cash. 15,000 total. Take it or leave it, because if I step out that doorway, this deal is dead forever." He eagerly grabbed the document to look it over. The moment he spotted Wong Erba's signature, his eyes popped. He knew exactly how ruthless that crew was. Still, his merchant instincts were already crunching numbers. Sure, the estate sat right in the middle of the slums, maybe worth 5 or 6,000 at the absolute most. But if he snatched up the cheap surrounding plots and expanded the place, he could actually make a pretty penny. Besides, 15 grand was a whole lot better than watching that massive northern garrison estate could swallow a guy whole for a year. "It's a deal," he blurted, gripping the title deed like it might vanish. He drafted the paperwork at breakneck speed, his hands still shaking. I signed my name, stamped it with my thumbprint, and slid the gold bars along with Wong Erba's old deed straight across the table. He presented the updated document with both hands, bowing low. "Sir, this carries our agency's official stamp. The local authorities will fully validate it. The Northern Garrison Estate is officially yours." I took hold of the document, feeling the coarse paper texture against my fingertips. 80 acres and more than 100 rooms, complete with a training field, hot springs, and gardens. So, this is how it feels to own a real place. In this world, right after securing the property, I went straight down to the slave market. No time to be picky or selective. I just gestured toward any group that seemed fit. "That bunch and those over there. Take them all. Cash seriously makes everything a breeze." In just a few moments, I had nearly 40 attendants following behind us as we made our way to the Northern Garrison Estate. The second we reached the main entrance, everyone went dead silent. The property was massive, huge, towering crimson doors, guarded by stone lions larger than a grown man. And right above the gateway, the words Northern Garrison Mansion were engraved in gold against black, giving off such a powerful military vibe that it felt totally suffocating. Su Qingwei gasped, clapping both hands over her mouth. "Linimo, are we seriously going to live here?" Qin Ruoshued didn't utter a word, but the intense look in her eyes said it all. Her gaze was already drifting past the walls, scouting out exactly where the training grounds had to be. I shoved the heavy double doors open with both hands. The deep groan of the ancient hinges echoed, like a waking giant letting out a yawn. "Welcome to our new digs." What was inside completely blew away my own expectations. A massive stone courtyard opened up to a grand main hall, where signs reading "Loyalty" and "Valor" hung high overhead. Next up were the living quarters. Dozens of private courtyards, spread out across the grounds like a constellation. No two were alike. Some sat right by babbling streams. Others were tucked away in dense bamboo groves, and a few were perched against the craggy hillsides. My fifth sister-in-law was the first one to break character. "Oh look, that courtyard has a swing." She bolted around, pointing left and right at everything. squealing like a little kid in a candy shop. Dibs on the biggest, most swanky courtyard here, I announced. This spot is mine. Strictly no entry without permission. Unless you're my wife, of course. Then I jabbed a finger toward the place right next door, and that one right there is the timeout room. Anyone who ticks me off gets thrown in there. To seriously reflect on what she did. Oh, and no dinner. You wouldn't dare. Chin Rushi's eyes flashed with a dangerous spark. I just shot her a smirk. Vanna, bet. She gave a sharp huff and turned around. Totally fuming, but unable to do a single thing about it. Su Chenwei quickly pulled me away before a real fight broke out. We checked out the back gardens next. A massive lotus pond featured a central pavilion, accessible by a zigzagging bridge, with colorful koi gliding lazily underneath. Eventually, we stumbled upon a massive glass conservatory. It felt like peak springtime inside, absolutely bursting with vibrant, fragrant flowers of every kind. The sisters-in-law got totally wrapped up in it, gabbing away about petals and exotic plants. Completely ignoring me, I let out a loud cough. Hey, don't you guys want to check out the training grounds? Shin Rusu bolted out of the greenhouse like a bullet. The training area sat at the very back of the estate. And man, it was magnificent. A stone-paved courtyard big enough to muster a whole army. With weapon racks lining every single wall, swords, spears, halberds, axes, and hooks. Every weapon you could think of, all gleaming with cold steel. At the far end stood archery targets and empty horse stables. This place wasn't just a training yard. It was a mini military base. Chin Rushi's breathing grew heavy. She walked over to the weapon rack, her eyes taking everything in, before her hand gripped a pitch-black spear. With a quick flick of her wrist, the spearhead sliced a silver arc through the air, making a sound like ripping silk. Then she moved. She was absolutely incredible. Her body flowed like a lightning strike. The spear, stabbing and sweeping with lethal accuracy. 1 second, she was lunging forward like a dragon, erupting from the ocean. The next, she was slashing sideways, like a tiger prowling down a mountain. The weapon turned into a blur, the air whistling around it. When she finished, she stood completely still in the middle of the yard, perspiration glistening on her brow. Her usually frozen expression flushed with pure, fierce joy. I could tell how much this meant to her. Ever since the Lin family fell, she had been stripped of absolutely everything. Her weapon sold off, her training abandoned, and her identity as a warrior erased, buried under sheer survival and fear. She'd gone from early morning drills to clutching stale bread in a ruined shack, convinced she'd never touch a weapon again. Yet here she stood, spear in hand, heart pounding, feeling alive again. The icy stare in her eyes had totally vanished, replaced by a blazing fire. She was radiant. Not just beautiful, but incredibly fierce. A true goddess of war. Even Su Qingyue teared up watching her second sister. You look absolutely stunning right now. I strolled over, hands tucked behind my back, putting on the air of a grandmaster. Not bad. That spear technique actually reminds me of my own style. From back in the day. Several sisters-in-law instantly burst out laughing. Oh, back in your day? You mean when you could barely breathe just lying in bed? Chin Rushua locked her fiery gaze onto me, all of her coldness entirely gone, swapped for something fiercely passionate yet warm. She slammed the butt of her spear against the stone floors. With a heavy thud. Care to spar? Chin Rushua clearly wanted to test me. Ever since I sent Wang Erba flying across the courtyard and kicked right through that iron cup, she'd been itching to find out exactly what I was holding back. It was a true warrior's way of getting answers. By fighting. Sure, I replied. I couldn't have asked for a better excuse. To get a little closer to her. She grabbed a practice staff in the armory rack, made of wood instead of steel, just to keep me safe. Pretty sweet of her. Aren't you picking a weapon? She inquired. I kept my hands behind my back, trying to sound all mysterious. Weapons are mere tools. A real master's body is the ultimate weapon. My main strength is hand technique. Hand technique? She had never heard of such a thing. Neither had anyone else. Fifth sister-in-law. Guessed I'd picked it up from Master Baker. Everyone burst out laughing. Su Qinyue called out anxiously, telling us to go easy on each other. Then Chin Rushua lunged forward. She was incredibly quick, accurate, and fierce. The staff cut through the air, aiming straight for my face. But at body tempering stage 2, her movements seemed like slow motion to me. I tilted my head, and the weapon whizzed right past my ear. She quickly shifted to a sweep at my waist. I bent backward, as if I were completely spineless. Evading it again. Nice power. Second sister-in-law, just a bit too slow. That totally infuriated her. Her strikes turned into a frenzied storm. Thrusting, slashing, sweeping, and chopping. The entire practice field was filled with the sound of howling, wind, and a blur of flying staff shadows. I avoided every single blow. I leaped, ducked, twisted, and maneuvered in the most ridiculous positions you could imagine. She was basically swinging a sledgehammer at a fly, and that fly was having an absolute blast. The sisters-in-law realized pretty fast that I wasn't even attempting to strike back. I was just messing with her. Before long, her breathing became heavily labored, and her arms began to tremble from sheer exhaustion. That was my cue to strike. I darted in close, reaching for her staff, and let my hand accidentally glide along the polished wood until it rested directly over hers. Closeness +1. Her entire body froze up, and her face flushed bright red on the spot. She attempted to yank it away, but I'd already leaped backward, raising my hands innocently. Oops. A total fluke, yet she lunged back even harder and angrier. I cleanly evaded her next strike, and inadvertently bumped right into her chest. Intimacy +2. She brought her weapon down fiercely. I dipped low, and my hand somehow ended up right on her backside, just trying to balance myself. She completely blew a fuse. Lin Amo, you total creep. My sisters-in-law stood watching, their jaws dropping in absolute shock. Did he seriously just feel up? Second sister? How bold. She's so rattled she can barely stand. But he looks completely earnest, like it really was just a mishap. Are you actually buying that? No way. The intimacy points were stacking up beautifully, though I maintained a deadpan expression. Second sister-in-law, steady your mind. During a match, you can't let your feelings blind your judgment. My heart's a mess, and whose fault do you think that is? Her eyes flared crimson with pure rage. She couldn't land a single blow on me, yet I kept finding fresh spots to accidentally graze. Her arm, her waist, her slender legs. Every single brush sent system alerts ringing in my mind. The score shot all the way up to 55, then suddenly stalled. No matter where I made contact, the meter wouldn't budge. Every target area had developed a tolerance. I pulled up the goddess gallery. She required 60 points to unlock her dossier. Just 5 measly points left. But every single zone I touched was completely maxed out. Well, all except one. My gaze drifted down to her chest, heaving rapidly with each heavy breath. Beneath her form-fitting training gear, the final frontier, the ultimate danger zone. If I go for it, she might legitimately end my life. Then again, it's for the glorious future of the Lin clan, for the holy task of keeping the family line alive. Totally worth the danger. Heads up. I roared at the absolute top of my lungs. Check out my ultimate move. Dragon Claw Clutch. In a flash, I vanished from the spot. Moving at stage 2 speed, it was straight-up teleportation. Qin Rushui's eyes could barely catch the blur before I materialized right in her face. My hand darted out and grabbed hold. Her soft, full breast fit perfectly in my palm. MNH. A tiny gasp slipped past her lips, carrying pure shock, mixed with something else entirely. It was breathy, incredibly feminine, and devastatingly seductive. My mind went completely blank. Closeness +5 ding. Qin Rushui's closeness has reached 60. Profile unlocked. Time literally froze, with my hand locked in place. That softness was just beyond words. Then, Qin Rushui snapped back to reality. Her face, neck, and ears flushed so violently red. I honestly thought she might self-combust. Lin Montak. Her shriek was loud enough to shatter glass. She started hurling every insult in the book at me. Shameless, disgusting scum, creep, and swung her staff right at my skull, with every single ounce of her strength. Crack! The thick wooden staff snapped right in two over my head. I just stood there, still paralyzed in that dragon claw pose, blinking like an idiot. Slowly lowering my arm, I gave a little scratch to the exact spot she'd whacked. My head kinda itches. Dead silence. At body tempering stage 2, a wooden stick was basically nothing but a back scratcher. Too bad Qin Rushui didn't get the memo. She goggled at the broken weapon in her grip, then looked at me standing there without a single scratch, and her fury instantly flipped into sheer panic. "Are you alright?" she stammered, charging right at me, but suddenly remembered why she'd smacked me and wheeled around, pissed off. Su Qingwei and the rest of the crew came rushing over, crowding around me as Su Qingwei grabbed my head to check every single inch of it. Not a single scratch, not even a red mark. She let out a relieved sigh, but still gave my arm a pinch. "Why do you always gotta be so handsy?" I put on my most innocent look. "Hey, it's not on me. My style's all about close quarters combat. Grappling techniques, you know? It only works up close." I didn't have any shady thoughts. Absolutely zero the whole time we fought. Shin Rushwa snapped back around, glaring daggers. Then why did you squeeze my? She couldn't bring herself to finish it. Instead, she just stomped her foot, let out a frustrated huff, and turned away, her ears burning bright red. I realized I'd pushed my luck to the absolute limit today. Definitely time to pivot. I clapped my hands together and called over the 30-plus servants who'd been taking in the entire show. They were staring at me in total amazement. Their new boss had just taken a full-blown staff strike, right to the skull, and didn't even blink. Standing up straight, I addressed them. As of today, I'm a master of this estate. You'll address me as master. There are 9 mistresses in this household, and you will call them First Lady, Second Lady, and so forth. I rested a hand on Su Qinghua's shoulder. This is my First Lady, Su Qinghua. Every household decision goes through her. Her word is law. Got it? Yes, master. They barked in unison, bowing deeply to the group. Greetings, master. Greetings, First Lady. Warmest greetings to all the ladies. The sisters-in-law instantly blushed bright red. Not a single one had ever been addressed as a lady before. Su Qing looked completely overwhelmed, like her heart might literally leap out of her chest, to be put in charge of this massive, sprawling estate. She was honestly moved beyond words. I paired up a personal maid for every wife, handpicked the most experienced, looking older gentleman to be the head steward, and assigned the remaining staff to the kitchen, stables, gardens, and housekeeping duties. Pretty smooth and efficient, if I do say so myself. Once the servants dismissed themselves, Su Qinghua timidly tugged at my sleeve. Do you seriously want me managing all of this? It's enormous. What if I completely mess it up? I gently pulled her into my arms. Look, you ran our broken-down shack flawlessly. This place is just a slightly larger version. Besides, you're the leading lady here. If you aren't running the show, who else would? She buried her face into my chest and nodded, her voice thick with emotion. Then, turning back to the rest of the crew, I put on a totally stern expression. One more thing. The term little brother-in-law is officially banned. Anyone caught using it gets punished. She'll have to keep my bed warm tonight. In your dreams, Qin Rushua snapped back, her face still burning. From this moment on, you will all call me either husband or darling. Go on, let's hear you try it out. One at a time, the little fifth sister-in-law whispered, stuttering out H-husband without thinking, before turning bright scarlet and wishing the floor would swallow her whole. I couldn't help but laugh at their blushing faces, and finally played my ultimate trump card. All right, enough teasing. This estate has well over 100 rooms. Go grab your own courtyards. First come, first served. That did the trick. Every bit of bashfulness vanished in a flash. I claimed the one with the little garden. The lakeside pavilion is all mine. Dibs on the courtyard right by the training grounds. 9 stunning ladies instantly turned into a wild stampede, hoisting up their skirts and dashing off in all directions, giggling, shouting, and squabbling over their top choices. The entire Northern Garrison Mansion suddenly woke up, with their cheerful voices, seeing their faces light up with such pure, unadulterated bliss. Well, that beat out all the gold in my system. Dinner at the Northern Garrison Mansion was a grand affair. A massive, purple sandalwood table was piled high with spectacular dishes. As the new chef pulled out all the stops for his big debut, I took the head seat with Su Changwei on my left, still acting shy, and Qin Rushua on my right, still blushing from earlier. The rest of my lovely wives packed out the table, while attendants stood at attention against the walls. For once, we actually felt like a real, proper family. All the grief and anxiety that had been crushing the sisters-in-law seemed to dissolve with every shared laugh and bite of food. Their faces were radiant once more, each showcasing her own distinct charm. It finally clicked. This was exactly what I was fighting for. Once dinner wrapped up, everyone drifted off to their newly claimed quarters. I made my way to mine, the Heavenly Heart Pavilion, the grandest and most lavish spot on the whole property. Shutting the heavy doors behind me, I crashed onto a purple sandalwood bed, sprawling enough to fit 8 people, and let out a massive sigh. That was the most satisfying sigh of my life. Went from a total dump to an 80-acre estate, from literally starving to having a full staff. Honestly, not bad for just a few days of work. I pulled up the beauty gallery. Inside my head, and there was Sheen Rue. Her profile had finally lit up completely. And man, the portrait was breathtaking. There she was in a sleek black and red combat suit, clutching a silver spear against a blood-red sunset, her eyes looking fierce and totally defiant. The system seriously knew how to capture her. Her stats showed a closeness level of 60, with the status reading close acquaintance. Her unique talent was labeled as unyielding. Once triggered, I'd get a heavy-duty toughness constitution that would drastically cut down damage from blades, blunt weapons, and all kinds of physical strikes. Pretty much a built-in invincibility shield. But then I checked out the activation condition, and my brain completely short-circuited. Have Chin Rushwa dress up in a sexy dancer's outfit and put on a private performance just for you. I reread it 3 times just to ensure I wasn't tripping. We're talking about Chin Rushwa, the ultimate ice queen. The exact woman who just shattered a wooden rod over my skull. For feeling her chest, now wearing a skimpy dancer costume, complete with tiny bells jingling around her waist. Shaking those hips for me? Dude, she would literally hunt me to the ends of the earth with a spear if I so much as brought it up. Hey, system, are you actively trying to get me killed here? Crickets, as per usual. Still, the talent itself was insane. I mean, total physical damage. Immunity is basically a straight-up cheat code for staying alive. In a sketchy place like Black Wind City, with who knows what kind of enemies waiting ahead. That level of protection would be absolutely priceless. I had to lock it in eventually. But I seriously needed to build up a lot more rapport first. This was going to be a long-term play. I shut down the interface and got straight to work. I emptied out every single piece of loot from my inventory, pouring it all onto the ground, everything from the bandit stronghold and the tyrant gang's stash combined. The entire room just lit up with gold and silver. A massive, literal mountain of riches stacked up right in front of me. There were gold bricks, silver bars, chests packed with pearls, jade, agate, and emeralds, plus vintage artwork and fine porcelain. I literally dove headfirst into the heap, just like a dragon basking in its own hoard. That chilly metal pressing against my skin felt absolutely amazing. This right here meant safety. This meant real power. After rolling around in it for a bit, I finally tallied it all up. 120 gold bricks, valued at 500 silver taels apiece. That's a solid 60,000 taels on the spot, plus nearly 80,000 more in raw silver bullion. Not to mention all the jewels and collectibles. Grand total net worth? Somewhere around 200,000 silver taels. That kind of cash was enough to buy up 20,000 acres of land. Basically half of a medium-sized county. I was officially a mogul. With a bankroll like this, I could easily enlist troops and carve out my own faction, dig into the plot that completely ruined my family, and ultimately take the fight directly to the Emperor. I stashed everything back into my inventory and finally crashed onto my plush bed. But sleep was a no-go. My brain just kept looping through the day's events. Su Qingyu's warmth lingering in my embrace, and her timidly murmuring, "Husband Qinru." She felt incredibly soft and delicate in my hands. Back during that whole Dragonclaw mishap, my inner chi was pumping violently through my veins right now, moving like a totally turbocharged engine, and practically begging for an outlet. Back in that old shanty, any kind of late-night fun basically became a public show for the entire household. But this happened to be the Northern Garrison Estate, 80 acres of massive property, with courtyards spaced incredibly far apart. I could literally do jumping jacks out there, and the neighbors wouldn't hear a peep. The stars had aligned perfectly. It'd be a crime not to drop by and see the First Lady for some late-night cultivation practice. Sneaking out the door, I melted into the moonlit night, stealthily making my way toward Su Qingyu's quarters, the Moon Caress Pavilion. The Moon Caress Pavilion was dead silent. Bypassing a knock, I slipped inside like a phantom. The room smelled absolutely divine. A mix of fresh bathwater, flower petals, and that intoxicating aroma unique to a woman. Fresh from her bath, Su Qingwei sat at her vanity. In the soft candlelight, her damp, dark hair was pinned up loosely, with a few stray strands tracing her pale neck. She wore a moon-hued silk nightgown so sheer, it basically left nothing to the imagination. Under the warm flicker of the candles, her skin seemed to radiate from within. She was scowling slightly over a ledger, fretting over the management of such a huge estate. That intensely focused, slightly stressed look totally melted my heart. I cleared my throat, she gasped, dropped her ledger, and whipped around. "Husband, what are you doing here?" She tried bunching her nightgown closer, which only made things worse or better, depending on how you look at it. Striding over, I scooped her right up and gave her backside a playful little swat. My lady is wearing herself out over this family. What kind of husband would I be if I didn't visit? Give her some solace. She let out a squeal and melted into my arms, anxiously whispering that the maid might catch us. I told her I'd carry my own wife whenever the hell I wanted. I settled her onto the bed and hovered over her. "All right, what's troubling my gorgeous manager? Are we seriously going broke already?" She giggled and gave my chest a playful swat. She confessed that she was terrified of messing up managing such a massive property, scared she'd end up embarrassing me. I pressed a kiss to her forehead. Look, you could burn this place to the ground, and I'd still have your back. Besides, keeping books is nothing compared to our ultimate family duty. Family duty? I leaned down right next to her ear, carrying on the family bloodline. Naturally, following our intense talk, I felt incredible. The dragon and phoenix method had given my cultivation a massive boost. My system's status now read, body tempering stage 2, novice level. But the real mind-blower was Su Qinghua. She had completely evolved. Her already breathtaking looks had hit a whole new level. Her skin was radiant, literally glowing, and there was an effortless, alluring magnetism in her every glance. If she was considered the capital's top beauty before, she was something straight up otherworldly now. Just then, a system notification popped up. Su Qinghua's beauty rating had reached a perfect 100 out of 100, an absolute masterpiece. And as a bonus, I unlocked a martial arts skill called Great Dragon's Might. It was an area of effect striking technique. A single strike unleashes a thundering dragon's roar, the impact shattering into endless dragon phantoms that completely wipe out anything in their path. The definitive skill to take down entire armies all by myself. The absolute breakdown of the mastery instantly flooded right into my mind. I could just feel that if I threw a punch this very second, the actual air would shatter into a raging vortex of dragon-shaped energy. Glancing down at the goddess asleep in my embrace, I was hit by a massive wave of thankfulness. She wasn't merely my spouse. She was my ultimate buff, my top-tier SSR. Limited edition drop. Seriously, you are my literal god. I blurted out, giving her a deep kiss. She giggled, totally baffled but happy. What are you even talking about? No way could I just take a legendary gift like this without showing some proper appreciation. I owed her big time, and I always pay back what I owe with interest. Hubby, stop. It's nearly morning, she murmured, out of breath, and totally pleading. Meanwhile, I was barely getting started. Finally, just as everything turned peaceful and quiet, one last system alert flashed across my mind. Congratulations! Su Qingwei has successfully conceived a Lin family successor. The host is officially a father. The primary quest for the family prosperity system has reached a major milestone. Reward, successor, gift bundle. I completely froze. Slowly I looked down at the gorgeous woman resting so peacefully in my arms. Su Qingwei was pregnant. I woke up at daybreak feeling absolutely phenomenal, with that congratulatory ping from the system. You're a dad, still ringing inside my head. It honestly took me half the night to wrap my head around it. Just a few days in this world, and I've already scored a wife, a massive estate, and now a kid on the way. Talk about clearing content at warp speed. Su Qingwei was still snoozing peacefully against me, a lovely little smile playing on her lips. Her looks had officially reached their absolute peak. The system gave its stamp of approval beauty score, a perfect 100 unmatched gorgeousness. The dragon and phoenix art had completely reinvented her. Her skin was practically incandescent, and she carried this innate, deeply hypnotic allure in every single gesture. Now, paired up with the gentle glow of an expectant mother, she was simply breathtaking. My stamina was already bouncing back, and I was totally plotting a sneaky wake-up cuddle, when she stirred, cuddling into my chest all sheepishly, and murmured to ask what I was gaping at. Just my wife, the most stunning woman alive. Blushing hard, she began doodling little circles on my chest with her fingertip, which totally wasn't helping me cool down. But she shifted gears into management mode right away, her domestic superpower taking center stage. She had already inspected the whole property and compiled a massive checklist of everything that required fixing: leaking roofs in multiple courtyards, the pantry completely cleared out, supplies to restock, custom outfits to get for everyone, down to the staff, a payroll structure to set up, grounds to revitalize, and vacant stables to take care of. She presented the whole breakdown, hyper-organized and meticulous. I was seriously blown away. This lady was a natural-born matriarch, tracking every minor point. Nothing slipped by her. Once she wrapped up, I materialized a massive trunk straight from my inventory. It slammed down onto the floorboards, the lock popping open, to flaunt rows of perfectly stacked gold bullion, gleaming brightly in the early sun. Her jaw literally dropped. She stared at the wealth, like she'd completely forgotten how to blink. Use this as a starter, I mentioned nonchalantly. The entire domestic budget is completely in your hands. Whenever you run low, just let me know. She instantly had a million questions about where it all came from. How'd I even pull that off? Yet I watched her swallow back all her questions. She learned to stop asking, since my explanations inevitably revolved around our bedroom antics, which was just way too awkward for her to hear. So, she just gave a quiet nod, taking the gold alongside the deep trust it represented. Next, I brought up a heavy matter that had been on my mind. Qinghua, our dad and brothers, are still resting in unmarked graves up on that ridge, just outside city lines. They died unjustly, and they deserve so much better. Now that this estate is finally ours, I want to arrange a proper burial for them. Let's track down a prime piece of land, erect a proper Lin family ancestral hall, set out their memorial plaques, and ensure incense stays burning in their honor. Her eyes welled up with tears instantly. Nodding resolutely, she took charge of the planning right then and there. She would seek out the finest undertaker in town, recruit the most skilled feng shui expert, and commission top-tier golden phoebe wood coffins. She was determined to see it done flawlessly. Then, she brought up another pressing issue. This property spans 80 acres with high surrounding walls, but our actual defense is practically non-existent. A couple of gatekeepers won't keep out a real threat. We need to form a legitimate security detail. She proposed getting Qin Rushui to oversee the matter. Our second sister-in-law was raised in a military household. Her father had served as a general, meaning she knew way more about enlisting, drilling, and marshaling combatants than anyone else around here. Brilliant point. You really are the ultimate household boss. I teased, giving her cheek a playful pinch. I'll head over and catch up with her right away. I tracked down Xin Rushui out on the practice field. She had already been training since before the crack of dawn. An hour into her blade drills already. She rocked a snug black training kit that highlighted her toned physique, slender waist, endless legs, and absolutely zero body fat. Wielding the pity flower sword, her movements were pure poetry. Her blade work had a dancer's grace, mixed with a warlord's sheer brutality. Gorgeous, yet lethal. But the second she spotted me drifting over, her rhythm faltered just a bit. Memories of yesterday's spar. My hands, those accidental touches, and that final squeeze must have hit her all at once. Blushing hard, she had the split-second look of pure panic in her eyes, before forcing herself to chin up. Rushiwa acted like I wasn't even there, and kept running through her katas, though her form was way sloppier than before. The proud ice queen was totally rattled, and it was cute. I strode right up, flashing my most innocent grin. Morning, wifey. Up early grinding. She nearly threw her back out mid-swing. Who's your wife? Cut the crap. I held out an open palm. Oh, not my wife. Then I'll be needing the pity flower back. I only loan it to my missus. So, since you aren't her. The look of sheer dread on her face was gold. She'd been using that blade nonstop for 2 days, and was utterly obsessed with it. It outclassed anything she'd ever owned. And lately, it had somehow gotten even sharper. That was because my beauty gallery, affection stats were climbing, which buffed the weapon, not that she knew. Demanding it back now felt rougher than begging for a kidney, but demanding she introduce herself as my wife. For someone with that much intense pride, that was just as out of the question. She just stood there, paralyzed, jaw clenched, gripping the hilt with white knuckles, completely torn between two awful choices. Her face flushed through about 15 shades of red, until her stubborn pride finally won out. She thrust the blade right back toward me, handle first, with her chin held high, her voice cracking with barely hidden heartbreak. Fine, just take it back. She quickly averted her gaze, so I wouldn't catch on to how crushed she was. But her fluttering eyelashes gave her away completely. I didn't take the weapon, though. Instead, I closed the distance until I was pressing right up against her. She tried to back away, but bumped into a wooden training post. Trapped with nowhere to run, my scent enveloped her, and I could actually see her pulse racing in her neck. Extending just 2 fingers, I gently nudged the sword back in her grasp, my fingertips lightly brushing against her warm skin. She flinched as if she'd taken a shock. Enfolding her hand, blade and all, I held it tenderly. Hey, I was only teasing. I let go, and the playful banter in my tone shifted into something real. Nobody in this entire manor is more worthy of this sword than you are. Keep it, my second lady. Those last few words seemed to linger. In the space between us, she stared down at the blade, then looked up at me, completely lost for words. I could practically see the gears in her mind, grinding to a dead halt. This shameless creep, who had groped her yesterday, had just said something that made her heart skip a beat. She had no idea how to process that, and before she could make sense of her emotions, I shifted to business mode. Su Qingwei and I had a chat this morning. This property is huge, but it's wide open to trouble. We've only got a few servants watching 80 acres. We seriously need a proper security detail, capable fighters and reliable mounts. I want you running the whole show. The shift happened in a heartbeat. All that flustering and blushing just melted away. Her eyes flared up like a switch had been flipped. The timid girl was gone, and the general's daughter took over, sharp, laser-focused, and in control. You're spot on. We can't waste any time. She dove straight into a strategic plan, without even blinking. The horse market by the west gate deals in retired steeds from the northern border. They aren't elite cavalry, but they easily beat everyday horses. That's our starting point. As for recruits, there's a mercenary hub over on the south side. That's where veteran soldiers, drifting blades, and broke martial artists tend to hang out. If we throw around enough coin, we can lock down some real heavy hitters. Seeing her talk tactics like that felt like looking at a completely different person. This was the genuine Qin Rushua, not merely a gorgeous girl with a fiery attitude, but someone who totally mastered command. Perfect. Let's roll right now. Horses come first, then the muscle. We made our way to the Westgate Horse Bazaar. The grounds were chaotic and loud, smelling heavily of feed and animals. Qin Rushua walked right beside me in her sleek black gear, practically oozing poise and authority with every stride. She still looked a bit flushed from our morning moment, and she was deliberately keeping half a foot of space between us. She wouldn't even look at me, but I didn't care. I just strolled along right next to her, completely content. Every now and then, I'd sneak a peek at her waist, and the curves below. Honestly, this feisty little thing was really starting to win me over. The second we walked into the marketplace, a horse trader sporting a pencil mustache and sketchy, shifty eyes came rushing over. Welcome, sir. Welcome, miss. You two look like folks of fine taste searching for a mount. Come check out Old Moss's stables. Satisfaction guaranteed. The trader practically hauled us over to his pen and gestured toward a chestnut-colored horse, hyping it up without missing a beat. He claimed it came from a line of legendary war horses, capable of covering 800 miles a day. I stayed quiet, since I don't know the first thing about horses. But Qin Rushua does. She stepped right up, pried the animal's mouth open without a second thought, and totally shut the guy down. Its teeth are completely ground down. This beast is 10 at least. You're trying to pass this off as a young stallion. Next, she ran her hands down its spine and legs. The back tendons are shot, and it has an old hoof injury. This thing would drop dead before hitting 20 miles. She glared at the trader with those piercing, freezing eyes of hers. And you have the nerve to call this a top-tier mount? The salesman's phony grin vanished instantly. He realized he'd just run into a real pro. Watching her do her thing was seriously awesome. Her effortless expertise, her keen gaze, and her commanding aura. She was absolutely stunning. Way more captivating than any spoiled, highborn lady I could ever picture. Completely brushing off the vendor, she headed further down into the rows of the barn, sizing up the animals one after another, evaluating their frame and muscle with an expert touch. Right then, she noticed a pitch-black stallion in the corner. A powerful build and sleek muscles, with a proud temperament. The horse actually dipped its head to let her stroke it. What a gorgeous horse, she remarked, before turning to face me. Those usually icy eyes of hers held the pure joy of a kid, spotting the ultimate toy, silently asking for my okay. I grinned and gestured over to the dealer. That one, plus the other 9 she was checking out, all of them. Name your price. The dealer knew better than to try any funny business now. He gave a fair quote. I paid him in silver coins, and instructed him to send them over to the northern Garrison Manor. Qin Rushua was absolutely beaming. She vaulted onto her new dark stallion in one fluid motion, dressed in black on a black horse. She looked every bit the fierce war goddess charging in a battle. She turned around to call me over, only to find me standing beside my brown mount, just holding the reins with absolutely no intention of climbing up. Why aren't you getting on? I rubbed the back of my neck. A bit embarrassing, sure, but I owned it anyway. I don't actually know how to ride. Cue the silence. She stared at me like I'd just grown a third head. The guy who'd thrashed a thug into a permanent lifestyle. Changed the man who completely wiped out an entire bandit stronghold on his own. Couldn't handle a horse? Then it clicked for her, right? I'd been a bedridden cripple my whole life before this. Of course, I'd never had a chance to learn. She let out a sigh, tapped the space behind her on the saddle, and uttered with pretty obvious reluctance. Hop on. Total music to my ears. I tossed my leather reins to a stable boy, and leaped up behind her in one effortless swing. The very instant I settled in, my arms naturally found their way around her slender waist, with my front completely pressed against her back, separated by just a couple thin layers of fabric. I could catch her body heat and her accelerating heartbeat. noticing the sudden tension in her muscles. "Watch your hands," she snapped. "Gotta hold on, though. What if I take a spill? It's literally my first time riding a horse. I'm terrified, honestly." Yeah, right. She knew it was total BS. Yet she couldn't really dispute the logic. All she could do was bite her lip and bear it, as my arms locked tightly around her waist, my hands practically burning against her stomach. Once the horse picked up into a trot, every single bump shoved me even closer in her back. Resting my chin right on her shoulder, I leaned right up to her ear, tossing out naive questions in my most earnest voice. "Hey, second lady, what's the trick to riding? How am I supposed to grip with my thighs? How do I keep from wiping out?" My warm breath kept brushing against her ear. Her neck and her shoulders, her whole back, really, were turning bright red. She was pretty much shaking, with a blend of pure rage and something else. "Sit still. Quit squirming," she forced out through gritted teeth. "Got it," I replied meekly, and squeezed her just a tiny bit tighter. After trotting along for a bit, she suddenly scowled and shifted around uncomfortably. "What's that on your belt?" "Shift your dagger. It's jabbing into me." I gave a clueless blink. "I'm not carrying a dagger." She froze, letting it sink in, and then, boom, the truth hit her like a lightning bolt. Her flush went from pink to deep red, then almost purple. Right at that very second, the horse reared straight up with a loud neigh. Chin Rushiue jolted forward, before the saddle violently threw her right back, landing squarely on something that was definitely no dagger. Her whole body went completely rigid, and her mind just totally blanked. Honestly, I think mine did too. We finally hit the Westgate Warrior Market, and Chin Rushiue practically leaped off the horse. The instant we halted, totally avoiding my gaze, her face was flushing bright red as she stormed off into the crowd without a single word. I pulled up the system interface. Her favorability had gained another 10 points, hitting 70. Current status, riding together. Man, that little ride was incredibly worth it. I grabbed a couple of meat, stuffed flatbreads from a vendor nearby, and trailed after her. By the time I spotted her, she had done a complete 180, acting like the general's daughter again. Just pure, ice-cold professionalism, standing right in front of a bunch of mercenaries, like she was custom-made to rule. I offered her a flatbread, and she instantly tensed up, clearly flashing back to the horse situation, and tried to decline until her stomach let out a massive rumble. She snatched it away and aggressively bit down, almost like she wished it were my flesh instead. Watching her scout talent was an absolute masterclass. This one jacked guy was pounding his chest, hyping up how tough he was. She gave him a single glance and just walked past. Weak stance, erratic breathing. Then a thug wielding a machete cut her off, giving her a sleazy look. She had her pity flower sword pressed against his throat before he could even finish his sentence. The entire bazaar went dead silent right after that. And then she tracked down exactly what she wanted. A crew of low-profile men lingering back in the shadows. Actual troops. She approached one and inquired about his old unit. The guy winced and rattled off some former military unit. She asked who led the Blackwater River clash. His eyes welled with agony. General Tiger's might, he muttered. Her very own father's title. Her eyes welled up for a split second before she composed herself. She selected 50 battle-hardened veterans. They looked rough in tattered gear, with weary faces, but their gaze said it all. The gaze of men who'd slain and survived. These guys were the real deal. When we were set to head back, I patted the horse and smirked. "Want to share a ride again?" She leaped back 3 paces, as if the saddle were glowing hot coals. "I'm walking," and she marched all the way back. By the time we hit the estate gates, it was pitch black. Then everything went sideways. A tiny silhouette came, stumbling toward us out of the dark, wailing and shrieking. It was Chun Tao. Su chingue personal en maith. Her hair was a disaster, her clothes filthy, and tears were streaming down her face. She collapsed right at my feet. "Master, it's awful. The First Lady, she's been taken." Every bit of amusement drained from my body, like someone had pulled the plug. I grabbed her and hauled her up. "Breathe. Tell me exactly what went down." Between her heavy sobs, she explained that Su Qingwei had gone out today to take care of some family errands, depositing gold at the bank, purchasing gear, and consulting a geomancer regarding the shrine's construction, dedicated to my dad and brothers. It all went off without a hitch, but heading back, right past the main gates of the city. Some masked thugs blindsided them from the woods. They blitzed the guards and snatched Su Qinghua, leaving behind a message. I ripped the mangled note right from her shaking hands. Sloppy script. If you want her alive, head out to Boulder Slope on Black Wind Mountain, solo. Bring backup, and you'll be recovering her corpse. A fuse blew inside my mind. An explosion of pure bloodlust erupted from me, so overwhelming that all 50 of the newly hired vets, tough bastards who had survived brutal war zones, turned pale and gasped for air. They're dead. Just 2 words. Chilling as a graveyard. Sukinwa, the very first person to show me real kindness here. The woman running my entire estate, who called me her husband with that bashful grin, who was pregnant with my baby. Some bastards had taken her. Chin. Rusher Wei was instantly by my side, blade unsheathed, face pale with rage. I'm riding with you. I gripped her wrist. No, you hold the fort. She's been kidnapped, and you expect me to sit tight. I pivoted to face her directly. Whatever look she caught in my eyes froze her in her tracks. They want me alone. This smells like an ambush. Draw me out, then blitz the villa while it's wide open. 7 of our sisters are still inside, along with dozens of defenseless servants. If we both clear out, and this is a feint, everyone here is slaughtered. The fury vanished from her expression as reality hit home. I turned back to the 50 mercenaries, my voice cutting through the air like freezing steel. Starting right now, you take commands from the second lady. Secure the entrance. Nobody gets in or out. If anyone tries to attack, take them all down. Sir, yes, sir. 50 voices thundered back, their inner warriors fully awakened. I glanced back at Chin Rushua one final time. The lethal anger burning in my eyes softened a bit, replaced by the sheer weight of reality. I was trusting her with everything. The family is in your hands. With that, I melted into the darkness. I slipped away into the shadows of the night. Behind me, I had no doubt about Shinru. She would keep the estate locked down. She was a commander's daughter, after all, and the second I departed, she would become the bedrock anchoring the entire place. And she did. I could hear her throwing out commands, even before I was out of range. Lock the gates. Position archers on the watchtowers. Get patrols organized. All the women are to gather in the main hall. In just moments, she transformed 80 acres of lavish property into an absolute stronghold. Those 50 combat veterans we just brought on, they were already falling into line, obeying her like she'd led them for years. But I couldn't focus on that right now. I sprinted through the pitch-black streets of Blackwind City, like a phantom, driven forward by nothing but pure, freezing resentment. The jokes, the banter, the lightheartedness, all completely gone. Nothing but ice flowed through my veins now. I forced my mind to stay sharp, even with the fury blaring inside my head. Who pulled this off? Surviving outlaws from Blackwind Fortress? No way. I completely eradicated that bunch. Wang Debo's henchmen? They didn't have the wits or the guts for it. Maybe some other local syndicate? It's possible. Or was it the same culprits who poisoned my brothers and tore the Lin household apart in the first place? That final realization just made my blood boil, leaving me absolutely blind with rage. Whenever the image of Su Qinghua crossed my mind, her sweet grin, her timid voice calling me her husband, and the unborn child she was carrying, this overwhelming urge to kill just intensified within me. She brought the very first glimpse of light into my life, bearing the sole hope for the future of the Lin clan. Yet some bastard had gone and snatched her away. I managed to arrive at Blackwind Mountain, way faster than I ever anticipated. Chaos Rock Slope. A chaotic cluster of sharp crags, sitting right at the foot of the mountain, all washed out in the pale moonlight. A pair of bandits were chilling behind a massive boulder, knocking back cheap booze and shooting the breeze. One guy had a scarred face, while his buddy was a scrawny, rat-faced fellow. As I crept up silently, I caught every single word. Scarface was whining about how their chieftain was being way too paranoid. He's just a pretty boy. Why even bother snatching his lady? We should have just raided his estate and ended him right there. Ratface chuckled. Boss claims the dude is bad news. Wiped out that whole tyrant crew all by himself. So, we use his chick as a bargaining chip. Bait him up into these hills, and 100 of our boys will hack him to pieces. Scarface spat onto the dirt, replying, "The moment he rolls up, let's shake him down first." Word is he totally cleaned out the tyrant gang's stash. We demand 100 taels for the toll, and if he refuses, we start chopping off his woman's fingers one by one. I stepped straight out from the darkness. The moonlight illuminated my face and dark attire. Standing tall and rigid, my eyes held nothing but pure ice. Scarface noticed me first, laying out a smirk, as he gripped his sword and swaggered right toward me. "So you're Lina Mo, huh? Come to rescue your precious little bride. You got it. But first, fork over 100 taels from me and my pal here. Make it worth our while. And maybe we'll let you catch one last glimpse of her." The guy was still running his mouth when I lunged. 3 meters of space vanished in a flash. My fingers locked around his windpipe before he could even register it. Crack! His neck snapped like a brittle twig. His head slumped to the side, at an angle no living neck should. That arrogant smirk was frozen forever on his corpse. I dumped the body away like garbage. I didn't spare a glance, didn't give a damn. My gaze fixed straight onto the rat-faced bastard. His jug of wine shattered on the dirt. He just gaped at his partner, a brutal thug who just had his neck wrung like a chicken. It took less than a second. He tried to shriek, but no sound came out. His legs gave out, sending him crashing to his knees. Lead on. Just 2 words, uttered colder than anything I'd muttered in 2 lifetimes. He just knelt there, trembling violently, whining, "Please don't kill me," over and over again, completely paralyzed by fear. Stepping closer, I backhanded him right across the face. The impact spun him halfway around his jaw. Instantly, ballooning his teeth and blood sprayed from his mouth. The agony jolted him right back to his senses. He stared into my bloodshot eyes, which held absolutely zero mercy, and finally realized what he was dealing with. This wasn't a man. It was a demon crawled from hell to harvest souls. "I'll show you. I'll take you right to them, sir." He scrambled wildly to his feet and bolted up the concealed mountain path, running for dear life. Terrified of what would happen if he slowed down for a single heartbeat. His head would point the exact same way as his buddies. That rat-faced thug guided me deep into Black Wind Mountain, right to a fort called Black Cloud Stronghold, the biggest bandit setup on the whole mountain. The moment we hit the entrance, the gates were wide open, with blazing torches lighting up the place like daytime. Over 100 armed outlaws lined both sides, forming a gauntlet of blades. They were trying to psych me out. I strolled in solo, taking it slow, keeping a totally blank face. Every thug who locked eyes with me recoiled and gripped their weapons a bit tighter. Up on a raised dais at the far end sat the mastermind behind the whole gig, a massive woman by the name of Wang Sanjiao. She was huge, completely overflowing a tiger skin chair, and her eyes were meaner than any guys in the room. She ran the show at Black Cloud Stronghold, and lounging next to her, in smaller seats, were 2 familiar faces, Wang Daba and Wang Erba, the brothers I wrecked. Wang Daba had spent his final 5 taels of silver to get word up the mountain to his sis. She brought them both up, tried to patch Wang Daba up, but failed, and now both siblings were permanently crippled. She wanted payback. Her strategy was basic but lethal. She knew from her brothers that I was a dangerous powerhouse, so she grabbed Su Qingwei to bait me here alone. 1 guy against 100. Even I couldn't beat those odds, especially with my wife held hostage. Right in the middle of the hall stood a massive iron cage. Inside, Su Qingwei was lying knocked out, her dress rumpled and her hair a mess. Yet even unconscious and surrounded by filth, her beauty was absolutely breathtaking. Those bandits were ogling her like a pack of wolves, tossing out vile remarks about what they'd do to her. Once they finished me off, Wang Sanjiao laid out her twisted game plan to the cheering mob. They were going to tie me up, pry my eyelids open, and force me to look, as every single one of her goons took turns violating my wife. She wanted me to rot from the inside out with pure shame. Wang Erba, having seen what I could pull off firsthand, clutched his sister's sleeve with shaking hands and pleaded with her to just let Su Qingwei go. "That guy's no human. He's a straight-up demon." Wang Daba backhanded him across the face. "With 100 men and our sister calling shots, one lone punk can't do squat. Man, were they wrong." I strode right through that gauntlet of armed thugs, totally silent, my eyes locked onto just one target, that iron cage and the woman trapped inside. Our rat-faced guide started parting his lips, probably eager to brag about reaming me in, but my fist smashed straight into his skull before a single syllable could escape. His head split open like a watermelon taking a sledgehammer hit. Shards of bone, blood, and gray matter splattered all over the dirt. As his headless corpse collapsed and twitched, every last voice in that stronghold instantly died out. 100 bastards who'd just been howling for blood felt dead silent. The icy chill that gripped them had absolutely nothing to do with the mountain breeze. Wang Sanjiu's smug grin instantly hardened on her face. This definitely wasn't part of her plan. She'd anticipated a broken man ready to beg for mercy, not a monster who would butcher someone without a second thought. She snapped back to reality quick, though. She slammed her massive meat cleaver against the iron cage, with a loud clang, pressing the edge right towards Su Cheng. "Freeze right there, where the girl gets it. Take one more step, and I'll skewer her." I halted. She smirked, believing she was back in control, gesticulating toward her 2 maimed brothers. She barked her conditions. "Want to save your darling wife? Then drop to your knees and crawl over. Well, down on my brothers, and lick the soles of their boots spotless. Do that, and maybe, just maybe, if I'm feeling generous, I'll give her little lady a quick death, instead of a slow, torturous one. Her scheme was obvious. The second I knelt, her thugs would ambush me, bind me up, and force me to watch as 100 outlaws ravaged Su Chinwei, one after another, until I died of pure despair. She assumed she had me trapped. She assumed wrong. Standing still, I sized up the room. Roughly 130 armed cutthroats blocking the path to that iron cage. Wang Xinjiao stood right beside it, her blade poised to strike Su Qing. The very moment I made a move, spanning over 10 meters, even with my top speed, she'd execute my wife before I could close the gap. A frontal assault meant certain death for Su Qingwei. I needed an alternative. My mind scanned frantically through my entire inventory, every tactic and any sort of edge. Suddenly, a radiant golden light flashed at the periphery of my consciousness. The bonus bundle, the one awarded when the system logged Su Qingjiu's pregnancy. It had completely slipped my mind amidst all this madness. I popped it open instantly. The Cosmic Soul-Fixing Talisman. A single-use item that, upon activation, freezes everything within a 100-meter zone, in a total temporal lock for exactly 3 heartbeats. Everyone except me. 3 heartbeats. That was all the time I needed. Wang Sanjiao noticed a shift in my look. But it wasn't fear or despair. I was wearing a cold, creepy smirk. She totally misjudged it as giving up. Ready to play nice? Too late. I've changed my mind. Even if you beg on your knees and kiss their boots, She never got to finish that thread. A golden amulet, blazing with mystical runes, materialized in my palm. I shattered it. Boom! An unseen shockwave surged out from within me. The whole world ground to a halt. Everything locked up. Wang Sanjiao's hoisted blade, stuck motionless midair, the spit flying from a shouting thug's mouth, just hovered in place, catching the fire's glow. Flames stopped dancing. Specks of dust hung completely still. The wind died mid-howl. Nothing stirred. Not a single thing breathed except me. First heartbeat. I closed the gap to Wang Sanjiao in a blink. Second heartbeat. I wrenched the weapon right out of her frozen grip. Third heartbeat. I swung with all my might into her thick neck. Reality unpaused. A geyser of blood sprayed from where her head used to be, blasting several meters into the sky. Her massive head went flying, with a look of absolute shock, still frozen on her face. It bounced twice and went rolling across the dirt. Her mountain of a headless torso collapsed, drenching the stage in deep crimson. Every single outlaw in the camp went stiff, not from sorcery this time, but out of sheer disbelief. One moment, their unbeatable boss was running the show. The next, she was short ahead. Nobody could comprehend what had just gone down. Wang Daba let out the first yell, a high-pitched, freaky shriek. Spotting his sister's severed head on the floor, he completely lost his mind, howling and pointing right at me. Take him out. Whoever kills him gets it all. The gold, the women. Every single bit. Greed trumped fear. Well over 100 bandits roared, storming in from every single side. A dark wave of blades and pure rage came surging toward the stage. I locked eyes with Wang Daba and threw just one punch. The concentrated impact blew his skull wide open, like a squashed melon. Blood and brain sprayed all over Wang Erba, who just sat paralyzed in his seat, way too shell-shocked to even make a sound. Then the mob slammed into me. Su Qingwei was trapped right behind me in that cage, so backing up wasn't an option. Besides, a dragged-out fight meant higher stakes, more wild cards, and more ways for things to go sideways. I had to wrap this up right now, funneling every single ounce of my aura through the dragon and phoenix form. I poured it into an untried ability, the reward Su Cheng's. Flawless. Beauty rating had granted me great dragon's might. As I let out a roar, a colossal, blood-red dragon phantom materialized out of nowhere, unleashing a terrifying, spine-chilling cry. Then I unleashed a blow. Visible ripples of crimson. Shock waves detonated outward from my body. In every direction, the frontline thugs didn't even get a chance to holler. Their bodies just vaporized into a crimson fog on impact. The ones trailing behind were caught next, their skeletons shattering and their insides turning to mush. Corpses bursting apart, as if blasted by heavy artillery. I kept striking them relentlessly, unleashing a rapid trio of palm strikes. With the great dragon's force, the shrieking, the bones crunching, the wet, exploding flesh, it all fused together into a gruesome orchestra that rocked the whole peak. In the main hall, load-bearing pillars snapped just from the shockwaves, sending the entire structure crashing down and burying dozens more under the rubble. Once the dust cleared, The citadel had turned into a living hell. Limbs littered the floor, alongside rivers of gore, with a metallic tang so heavy I could taste it. Not even 10 raiders managed to stay on their feet, and every single one of them had totally lost it. They wailed about phantoms and monsters, tossed their blades aside, and scattered like crazy. I hunted them down, one after another. A blow that shattered a skull, a palm thrust straight through a torso. I became the Grim Reaper, wading through the carnage I'd left behind, to claim those final remaining souls. 0 survivors, absolutely none. As the last thug collapsed by the entrance, with his head smashed in, the whole Black Cloud den fell dead silent. Glancing up toward the dais, at the metal enclosure and the girl trapped within, the murderous rage faded from my eyes, giving way to a completely different feeling. Profound affection and an incredible sense of relief. The stronghold was an absolute shambles, drenched in blood, with remains strewn across the dirt, and a suffocating aroma of demise hanging in the air. The sole individual left drawing breath was Wang Erba, slumped right against the tiger pelt throne, drenched in his own mess, shivering like crazy. I stepped toward him through puddles of gore, every single footstep ringing out in the quiet. Squatting down right in front of him, my expression stayed totally blank. No rage, no malice, just pure numbness. That freaked him out way more than any aggressive growl could. Does your folks have any other kin left out there? Anyone else I ought to know about? He caught on immediately to what I meant. I was making damn sure no one was left behind to come looking for payback. No, nobody. Please, I'm a nobody. Just let me go. I got what I needed. I rested my hand softly on the nape of his neck. He could feel the heat radiating from my palm, along with the brutal force backing it up. With one faint snap, his head slumped over, the life fading from his eyes. All 3 Wong siblings wiped out. I got up without giving the corpse a second glance, and headed straight for the iron enclosure. All that fury, all the murderous bloodlust that had been searing inside me, just vanished the second I laid eyes on her. Nothing but total heartache remained. Su Ching-wei was huddled up inside the cage, her outfit all creased and stained, her gorgeous hair completely disheveled, stained with tear tracks on her white face. She looked breathtaking even in this state. Her frame shivered as she slept, locked in some awful dream. I smashed the heavy steel padlock with a single punch, carefully pulled the gate open, and scooped her up. She felt practically weightless in my arms. Waking up in a panic, she shrieked, "Don't touch me. Get away." She squirmed and kicked, fighting me off with every bit of strength she possessed. She figured I was just another thug. Seeing the sheer panic in her eyes completely broke me. "Xinghua, it's me." I gripped her tightly so she wouldn't injure herself, resting my cheek against her forehead, and murmured in her ear, "It's your husband. I've got you. It's all over. You're safe." My voice, my scent, some sort of familiarity, finally shattered her wall of terror. Her eyes focused. She recognized my face and just completely broke down. She flung her arms around my neck and buried her face into my chest, weeping so intensely that her entire body trembled. All the horror of being taken, all that helplessness, and all the relief of being saved, it all flooded out in endless waves of tears. "Lynn, Emma." I was so terrified, so terrified. "It's all right, I'm right here. It's past now." I cradled her and rubbed her back, reassuring her with the same words repeatedly, until she eventually cried herself to sleep in my embrace. Utterly drained, I pulled off my outer robe, drenched in blood that wasn't my own, and bundled her up inside it, leaving only her tear-stained face uncovered. Then I carried her down from that mound of corpses, passing through the ruined stronghold and out into the night. I didn't glance back even once. The monster who had slaughtered 130 men with his bare hands. That wasn't who I wanted to be at this moment. I was merely a man bringing his wife home. Back at the estate, the gates were glowing with light. Qin Rushua stood out in front, resembling a statue sculpted from ice, with her hand on her blade, flanked by lines of armed soldiers. She had defended the manor flawlessly. As she noticed me drawing near, her gaze shifted to Su Chingwei in my arms, and then to the blood coating every single inch of me. She went pale. She was totally spooked. "Find a doctor instantly." The butler rushed to send a messenger. I took Su Qinghua directly to her bedroom. My sisters-in-law trailed behind, their expressions tense with anxiety. I could feel Qin Rushio watching my back, the entire time fretting over her older sister. True, but I spotted a little something else in her look too. Concern for me. The town's top physician showed up, absolutely petrified. I loomed right over him as he checked on Su Qingwei, and my bloodshot glare had him sweating. Through his collar, once he finished checking her pulse, he let out a relieved sigh. She's just shaken up. No actual damage done. A bit of soothing tonic and some days of rest will set her straight. Everyone exhaled at the exact same time. My knotted-up muscles finally relaxed a bit. The physician then smiled and bowed once more. And congrats, my lord. The madam is pregnant. It's still early days, and the shock disrupted things slightly. So, I'll write a prescription to secure the pregnancy. With proper attention, she'll give birth to a healthy child. The room fell dead silent. Every single gaze shifted down to Su Qinghua's flat stomach. She was pregnant with the first Lin family successor. Qin Ruxio's face was a mix of emotions unlike anything I'd seen. Disbelief, a hint of jealousy. She probably wasn't even aware she had, but mostly pure joy. The Lin family lineage would go on. Our father and brothers could finally rest in peace. I shoved a silver bar right into the doctor's palm. Get the finest medicine available. Once the others departed, I sat by her bedside alone, soaking a warm washcloth in water. I gently wiped away each tear, stain and blemish from her peaceful, sleeping face. So fragile, like a glass doll resting there. In her sleep, she groped around, clutching at nothing while murmuring my name. Hubby, please don't go. I'm terrified. A sharp pang hit my chest. Squeezing her delicate, tender hand, I held on tight. I'm staying right here by your side. I'll protect you. Su Qing finally woke up by the afternoon. Beams of sunlight drifted through the drapes. The room was filled with the scent of soothing herbs, and a calm serenity hung in the air. Shifting her gaze, she spotted me resting right beside her, nodding off while stubbornly refusing to let go of her hand. I hadn't loosened my grip all night long. The second she stirred, I bolted awake, instincts kicking in from the previous night. My expression sharpened for just a second, softening instantly once I realized it was only her. Awake and doing fine. How are you feeling? She urged me to rest, but I joked that I was made of iron. Then, I reached for a bowl of the dark, unpalatable remedy the physician had prepared. Bottoms up. My lady, Doc says this is vital for you and the little one. Wrinkling her nose, she tried to shrink back. It tastes awful. I don't want to. Suddenly, she froze. Hold on. What did you just say? Vital for me and the what? She locked eyes with me, shivering slightly, unsure if she had misheard, or if I was messing with her again. Setting the bowl down with care, I perched on the mattress edge and rested my hand tenderly over her stomach. Our baby, Qinghua. You're pregnant with a Lin heir. Her mind went completely blank. She stared blankly at my hand on her belly, then up at my face, and then down at her womb again. Right then, reality washed over her all at once. The pure bliss of becoming a mom. The absolute wonder of keeping the Lin lineage alive. The heavy responsibility of honoring father's last wishes. As tears streamed down her cheeks, she snatched up that awful, foul-tasting brew she'd been turning down, and downed every single drop without a second thought. Next thing, she threw herself into my arms, sobbing against my chest. I'm just so incredibly happy, she wept. Well, let's pivot to something fun then, I suggested with a wide grin. We gotta pick a name. She snuggled up closer, beaming right through her tears. How's this look? I slapped my thigh with flair. If it's a boy, Lin Batian, ruler of the cosmos. Talk about badass, right? Her gentle expression completely locked up. Lin Batian? Seriously, that sounds like some outlaw leader. Fair enough. What about Lin Aodian? Glory of the heavens. You can practically feel the epic destiny in it. Her eyes began to twitch out of annoyance. All right, last shot here. Lin Ri Tian. I won't spell out what that name actually means word for word. Let's just leave it at it being wildly inappropriate. Su Qingyu's whole face flushed bright red. From her neck, right to the tips of her ears, as she shoved me back, grabbed a nearby pillow, and began whacking me with it. Absolutely no way. That is by far the most vulgar name I have ever heard. What is wrong with you? I caught the pillow easily, acting completely devastated by her total lack of taste. She turned her back to me, pouting hard. I am officially ignoring you now. I looped my arms around her from behind and dropped my voice to a gentle tone. Hey, come on. I was only messing with you. She finally chilled out a bit, but then I went and jammed my foot in my mouth again. Jokes aside though, Xinghua, this is merely the kickoff. Just one kid isn't going to cut it. I'm going to need an entire soccer team from you. Soccer team? She stared back, totally clueless. It was pretty clear she'd never heard that phrase before. It's this game, right? 2 squads on a massive turf field. There are 11 players on each side, and they basically boot a ball around trying to score. I was getting super hyped just explaining the whole thing. But Su Qing's mind got completely stuck on one particular digit. I watched her quietly tally it up on her dainty fingers. Her face went straight from bewilderment to utter disbelief. then to pure dread, and finally, absolute rage. 11. Her hand immediately found the soft skin at my hip and gave it a brutally painful twist. Ah, Linmu. Do you take me for some kind of pig? 11 kids? No way in hell. I absolutely refuse. In the dead of night, I sat all by myself in the study. 3 massive, heavy trunks of riches, plundered straight from the ruined Black Cloud Fortress, were resting in the corner, plenty to bankroll the estate for ages. Yet, cash was the furthest thing from my mind right then. The initial thrill of Su Qing's pregnancy had dissolved into a bleak, crushing weight. Today's abduction plot had brought a grim reality to light. I couldn't safeguard everyone strictly on my own. I managed to catch a lucky break this time around. But what happens down the road? What if raiders hit the compound while I'm out of pocket? What if they pull another bait and switch? I've only got 2 hands, but I have 9 women to keep safe. Not to mention dozens of staff scattered across an 80-acre property. A single guy can't patch up every single breach in defense. I required an actual army, one completely devoted, highly disciplined, and fierce enough to hold down the fort without me. My mind kept drifting back to a single person. Chin Rushawa, the lady who could spot a combat veteran from clear across a packed marketplace. The general's daughter, who was born a lead but never got her shot. I had to talk strategy about the defense plan with her. Like right away, I bolted up and made a beeline for her room. What slipped my mind was that it was the dead of night. And what I also forgot to do was knock. I burst her door open and barged right in, only to find her unwinding in a massive tub, enveloped by fragrant herbal steam, and totally stark naked. Get the hell out, you creep. She shrieked, submerging herself in the water, until nothing but her bright, crimson face and bare shoulders were showing, her eyes glaring with absolute, murderous rage. I completely tuned out the yelling. Walking straight over to the bath, I stared down at her with the gravest look I could possibly muster. I've got something incredibly urgent to hash out with you. She was so caught off guard by my sudden intensity that her fury actually sputtered out for a second. Biting her lip, she gave me a deeply suspicious glare. What is it? I gave it to her straight. Swetching's abduction was proof that I couldn't protect everyone on my own. I brought up the 100 troops she had gathered. The first 50 plus the extra 50. She'd taken the initiative to bring in that afternoon. Smart move. She shifted right back into commander mode, even while soaking in a bathtub. The latest recruits were solid fighters, but they were still adjusting and not fully on board yet. So I pitched my strategy. Every single person gets double pay starting tomorrow, and make sure there's meat served at every single meal. Troops who are well-fed and handsomely compensated will fight like absolute demons. She paused, hesitant. Is all that truly required? You bet it is. We literally just seized this estate. Our footing is still shaky, and rivals are watching us. Our security cannot afford to have a single flaw. Then, I locked eyes with her. I am putting you in total control of the entire security. For the northern garrison manor, everything from hiring, drilling, and patrolling, to strategic defense layouts, it's all on you. Your own choices, your own command. I only expect one thing from this. Turn this property into a completely unassailable stronghold. She froze completely still. Absolute authority. Her very own battalion. It was everything she'd dreamed about since she was a kid. Studying tactical manuals and mastering weaponry. Yearning to follow in her father's footsteps. Yet, she was always banned from it just for being a woman. Nobody had ever trusted her with actual, heavy duties. Quite like this. Something shifted in her gaze. For the very first time, she didn't stare at me like I was some shameless creep. She looked at me like I was a leader actually worth backing. You reckon I can't cut it? I egged her on. Who exactly said that? She bolted upright, triggering some rather fascinating water displacement. Securing a tiny estate? That's total child's play. Give me just 2 weeks, and this place will be untouchable. Flawless. Use whatever funds you require. Keep enlisting recruits. Caliber matters way more than headcount. Got it. For a few wonderful moments, we actually had an incredibly constructive chat. Tactics, supply chains, and chain of command. She was so hyper-focused on planning that she totally forgot she was sitting stark naked in a tub. Chatting away with him, she suddenly caught on. My hand were actually unbuckling my belt. Her mind short-circuited completely. Wait, what? What the hell are you doing? Every shred of esteem and reverence she had built up instantly vanished. In a split second, that image of a dependable leader crumbled, reducing him back to a total, bare-faced creep. I maintained a totally deadpan expression, while stripping off my outer cloak. Just handing you power isn't enough. You gotta beef up your skills, too. What if some elite killer sneaks in and takes you out? With a single blow? That'd look pretty bad for our chief of security. So, to ensure you level up as fast as possible. I've got no choice but to take one for the team and give you some hands-on coaching. I leaped straight into the tub. Splash! Water surged up like a massive tidal wave, drenching half of the bathroom floor. Oh, Lin, you absolute pervert. Get the hell out. Get out. You could probably hear her shrieking from 3 miles away. Moments latte. Ging. Ruashua managed to compose herself just enough to throw some clothes on. Her hair was completely disheveled. Her face was flushed redder than I'd ever seen it, and she was gripping the pity flower sword, holding the blade right against my neck. I threw my hands up in immediate surrender. Whoa, take it easy, wifey. Offing your husband is a pretty major crime, you know. Shut your mouth, you shameless beast. Her eyes were practically burning with pure rage. She was literally trembling with anger. Yet underneath all that massive fury, I could easily tell there was another feeling she refused to admit. This fragile side. A visible shaking that rage alone couldn't account for. Instead of stepping back, I pressed closer to the edge of the blade. Look, I get that you're pissed, but I wasn't just fooling around. Didn't you sense it? A shift deep within yourself. The only shift here is that I can barely walk. She was absolutely livid. She lashed out with her weapon at a nearby table just to blow off steam. And that's when the magic happened. A surge of crimson power erupted from a steel, sliced through the air, and cleaved the solid redwood table completely in two. Teacups shattered instantly, sending shards flying everywhere. Total silence fell. Shin Rusu stared blankly at the ruined furniture, then at her blade, and then back to the wreckage. Her mind completely short-circuited. Mine did too. Manifesting sword energy. That's way past the body-tempering realm. That's straight out of some cultivation myth. When I practiced the dragon and phoenix method, with Su Chengwei, it just enhanced her looks and vitality. Yet, Shin Rusu's seasoned martial arts physique had responded in a totally different way. The art had completely maxed out her fighting power. Pulling up her system menu, I saw her affection stat had skyrocketed from 70 to 82. But the most massive revelation was the sheer impact that dual cultivation had on her physical traits. Capitalizing on the moment, I urged, take a seat. Close your eyes and focus on the flow inside your body. She looked ready to murder me, but that devastating strike that split the table had left her profoundly rattled. Following a tense, lingering glare, she settled cross-legged on the mattress and directed her awareness inward. Her brow knit together. There's a faint, scarlet current of chi circulating through my channels. It feels soothing, and my chronic injuries, the ones no physician could ever heal, it hits them like a wave of healing. Just what I was aiming for. My inner power flowed right into her through the skill, recharging her batteries from deep within and mending years of wear and tear from training. Her eyes snapped open, locking onto me in sheer disbelief. That crazy power I just felt. Did it really happen because you spot on? I stood up straight, practically oozing pure righteousness. And look, this is barely the start. If we keep practicing together, you won't just be throwing sword beams. You'll be smashing boulders with your bare fists, slugging tigers, and drop-kicking sea dragons. I slickly tied it all back to protecting the estate. Think about it. Picture yourself blasting sword chi dozens of meters away. Who'd even dare mess with our turf? You'd become the ultimate protector of the northern garrison. Mansion. I could read it right in her expression. Xian Rushue was a hardcore martial arts geek to her very core, and I had just flashed the ultimate prize right in front of her nose. She was already visualizing it, shredding invaders with massive waves of sword chi and turning this mansion into an unbreakable stronghold. Any anger she had towards me was completely gone. Right then, I let out a heavy sigh. There's just one catch with my method. It demands a deep emotional vibe between both partners. And honestly, our bond is still kind of lacking. That's why the force spiked out of control and wrecked the table. If that hit a real person, it'd be a total disaster. Her eyes went wide with worry. Then, how we fix it? Easy. I leaned right up to her ear. We gotta tighten our bond. Keep training up our compatibility level. You wanna go again? I was already guiding her back down as the pity flower's sword hit the floor with a clatter, as it slid out of her fading grasp. Linamo, you absolute jerk. Not again. The remainder of her complaints were cut short. This time around, her pushback was way more half-hearted. When it came down to it, this was all for cultivation, for the clan, and for turning into an iconic fighter. Well, at least that was the lie she kept feeding herself.